This is Up for Debate presents Shaken, Not Stirred, 6 Decades of James Bond in Film. Tonight, episode number 146, recorded May 16th, 2019. Chapter 7, Daniel Craig in Quantum Casino of Spectrefall. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our continuing Up for Debate Presents. I am Sean Jennings, joined by a man who can't decide if he'd rather be in Quantum or Spectre. It is Mr. Matt Mariani. Hello, Matt.
Sean, I'm glad you brought out the two elephants in the room so quickly, so early.
Yeah, which organization
Quantum Spectre.
Which do you think you would fit in better with?
Sean, I have to say, I'm just going to say Spectre. I'm going to say Spectre just because it. Like, what do you see me as? A Spectre person or a Quantum person?
Well, that's a good question. The problem with Spectre is it's Blofeld's show. And the thing about Quantum is, from what we know about it, assuming, of course, they retcon it later to be part of Spectre, but assume they're unrelated. In Quantum, it doesn't seem like any one person is really in charge. It seems like they all kind of worked. So I think you would have more individual freedom and, involvement in the organization in Quantum, whereas in Spectre, you're just doing whatever Blofeld tells you to do. He's got that with an iron grip.
He does, but he's also got he's got lots of experience on his side.
That's true. If you want to get shit done, you can't go wrong with Blofeld.
Yeah. I always thought that little introduction of Quantum was interesting because, like, right before Spectre, it's like, why did it? I don't know. I'm sure we'll get into it in our discussion today. But
Matt, we have so much to talk about tonight.
We have a lot of ground to cover here.
I know you have a lot of opinion on these. I have a lot of opinion on these tnew Chapter 7.
Confusing.
Finally, our final 4 films. Daniel Craig, the man so nice they gave him 2 first names. Our new Bond, Matt.
Yeah. So I guess we'll jump right into it. So we concluded our last episode talking about Die Another Day. When we last left off, Die Another Day premiered in 2002.
Yes.
When we last left off, Pierce Brosnan was very excited to do another Bond film. It was going to be his 5th Bond film.
But he was only on a 4-film contract originally.
Right. He was on a 4-film contract, but I believe that the producers were like really excited about giving him like a 5th Bond film, and he was going to do one more Bond film and then probably call it quits after that. But suddenly we get this kind of abrupt ousting of Brosnan as Bond. Brosnan kind of goes along with it. He's kind of like, look, it happened to Connery too. He was kind of at the end of his days as Bond, and I know when to bow out too. He was very classy about it, very, very British and very classy about the whole thing, if I remember right. Now we've kind of entered the Bond era where we have a little bit of a benefit of this is kind of the era where we grew up as
sure, we were
young teens and stuff, and So I mean, what do you remember from the Bond film? Because I could from this Bond like era, I guess. What's something that you probably weren't a big Bond. If I have to make a guess,
are you saying the entire Daniel Craig era?
Just at the very start. When you heard, do you remember where you were? Do you remember where you were when Daniel Craig?
I mean, the world
the new James
stopped,
Bond?
Matt. I mean, really, everyone just froze. I remember frantically rushing to the windows to shout out to the city, "Daniel Craig is here!" No, I didn't give a shit about James Bond at that point, to be completely honest.
That's what I figured.
Now, Casino Royale was the first Bond film I saw in theaters.
Okay.
But I knew Pierce Brosnan was the previous Bond, but I did not care that it was a different guy. My interest in Bond at this point was probably 1%. I mean, not really existent.
Okay, that's fair. So what I remember, Sean, is very strange. I remember the first reaction from a lot of people being that they freaked out because Daniel Craig's hair color was blonde. And people freaked out because the new James Bond was blonde. I remember even my own dad my own father, being like, this guy looks more, and I quote him. He said, "This guy looks more like a Bond villain than a Bond actor." I kind of got what he meant. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
understood what he meant. Like, I mean, the first thing I thought of was Red Grant, the villain from Russia with Love.
He would make a good Bond villain. I never thought of that.
But Daniel Craig,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, yeah, sure, he'd make a great Bond villain. So I guess I kind of fell into that like anti-blonde Bond propaganda at the time. Like, I admit, I probably joined the wave of like, this guy is not my hashtag not my Bond, I guess, but.
Yeah, but it's not like all the other Bonds were the same dude. I mean, yeah, they were all white dudes, but they
No,
weren't
I
like
mean,
identical.
I definitely, I mean, looking back on it, and like as we go through the movies, spoiler alert, I definitely changed my opinion on it, but just that was like my guttural reaction back
Yeah,
then.
I could see
And
that.
it's weird. It's weird to think about that. Like, why, just because he's blonde, why does that mean that he's not going to be a good
Yeah,
Bond?
but Matt, that's like saying a woman can be a Ghostbuster. It's people just don't like change. I understand.
I guess
it.
that's true. I guess it's just because it's like there's a beloved character that you kind of like
We
have
see
had an
that
identity
all the
built
time
up
now.
all years, and that identity gets changed in a little bit of a way, and it makes you uncomfortable at first. But um, I have to say, as a fan of Bond in his roots, in his prime, I got to say that the Craig Bond really definitely made an impression on me, like for a positive way. Um, so I mean, I just remember that. I just remember that being the hype around it.
Sure.
It's weird. It's weird to think about now, but anyway, the blonde Bond thing was a big deal.
Well, we had had a decade of Pierce Brosnan, so I think any change would have certainly been, especially in a high intensity, high budget media environment that 2006 was.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are only 4 years that separate Die Another Day from our newest film, Casino Royale, but those 4 years saw the Iraq War. It saw a lot of changes with the overall culture.
When did I have to Google this? When did Batman Begins come out?
Oh, wow!
Do,
Without
do you know the
googling,
answer? I just
I'm
looked
gonna
it up.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess. It was it 2008.
It was 2005, a year before
Ooh,
Casino
okay.
Royale. I think a good early example of the sort of grittier films of the mid to late 2000s.
There were a lot of gritty
I mean,
films.
that really helped kick off that movement to a certain degree. And yeah, I mean, that's very clear in these movies. That's what you're getting.
Yeah. Overall, I think Craig was more of a direction. I mean, we could talk about this at length with the. I mean, I'm sure you'll see it with all of these movies, but Craig was kind of definitely the grittier between him and Brosnan, the grittier Bonds of the 21st century,
Yeah.
for sure.
Not your daddy's Bond.
Yeah. Um. So we look at Casino Royale in 2006. Sean, the first thing that I thought of, all right,
Mm-hmm.
looking back and connecting this movie to 2006, they couldn't have waited another year.
Oh, so it was in 2007?
Just one more year, it would have been 2007. Like, I don't know, if I were somehow in charge of the production team, or like if I could wave a magic wand and just make it like come out a year later, wouldn't that be kind of neat?
Well,
Like 2007.
And it came out in
007.
November of 2006. So just like 2 months and you would have been there.
Right. You could have, yeah. I guess, I don't know. I just thought that would be, I don't know how good it would be for marketing, but
Well, but then again, Casino Royale made $600 million and became the highest grossing James Bond
Yeah.
film up to that point. So
it did just fine.
I think they were more interested in making money than the clever year. But I agree with you. I think that would have been neat.
Would have been kind of clever. Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of tongue in cheek, like, 007, the year of Bond. But I guess that's probably the year I'm guessing it came out on DVD. So the way they marketed the DVD was probably the same way they would
I'm
have
sure they
marketed
came
the
up
film.
with the year of Bond. I'm sure they did something very clever.
Something like that. Sean, what did you think of this movie?
You know, Matt, it's very interesting. As I mentioned, Casino Royale and Skyfall, I saw both in theaters. Hadn't seen Quantum of Solace or Spectre before. And my recollection of the two movies I had seen was that they were okay, but I didn't really like them that much. They were good enough, but not anything I was really excited about. And I'll focus on Casino Royale for a minute. Scratch that. I'm going to focus on all the movies for a second. I think especially this one, Quantum and Skyfall, for me are like 75% really good movies, but the 25% that's not good is so not good that it detracts from the other 75%. Like, I feel like each movie has a specific flaw that if you just fixed it, it would make a big difference in the final product. So I feel they're all most of the way there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I definitely follow where you're coming from with that. Let's see if we come up with the same flaws.
Okay, I'm interesting. Well, then you start Casino Royale,
all right.
2006 reboot of the franchise.
So going in, I have to say I love a lot about this movie.
Sure.
A lot about this movie. Mm-hmm. This is the first movie that so I've only read 2 of the confessions. I've only read 2 of the original Ian Fleming James Bond novels. Mm-hmm. And I've read Casino Royale and Live and Let Die 1 and 2. So I loved understanding what was going on. I hadn't read it at the point when the movie came out, but I rewatched the film shortly after reading the novel. And I just had like a connection where I like understood a lot of the plot and I understood a lot of the characters, mm-hmm. and they were very true to the book. This was, I feel like, even not having read the entire series, this is one of the movies where they're more true to the book than I think not true to it. So I like that. I loved the pre-credits intro to this movie.
Black and white,
really liked it.
Flashback of sorts.
I remember seeing it in theaters and being like kind of surprised that it doesn't open up with that traditional gun barrel that every Bond movie up until this point is opened with. It's kind of like you're kind of looking for it and you're like, wait, what? Like this, there's no gun barrel and it's all in black and white. Like it was very jarring. I remember being in the theater and being like, whoa, this is surprising. Like I've seen every Bond movie up until that point, and it always starts with a gun barrel. It always like starts out with Bond doing something cool, and it's black and white, and it's just like an office building. And then you're like, wait a minute, I remember having this thought in the theater, like no joke. Like I remember thinking like, am I in the right movie? Like, did I accidentally go into a different movie? Because it's very different.
Well, it's even shot differently. Which is, it's shot noir style. You're getting more Dutch angles. You're getting more sort of close-ups. It's not shot like a Bond movie. It doesn't feel like a Bond movie, which I think is a really bold choice to start out your first Bond movie with Daniel Craig.
Right. It's a good way to kind of introduce it, because it's not even like, right. It starts with the office building and this guy like going up and like doing his thing, and he goes behind a desk, and then all of a sudden this guy appears, and you know it's Bond because you've heard all the hype, and you know Daniel Craig is the new Bond, and he's got the guy, he's like sitting juxtaposed to the guy. They have a dialogue, and they talk about like you know, I think one of them is like, where's my operative? And it flashes to Bond like going through the headquarters, and he's in like the bathroom. And he just like he's beating up this guy, and all of a sudden it cuts to the guy behind the desk, and he's like, he made you feel it, did he? Like, and you're like, oh, so this must be Bond's first kill, and he says, don't worry, the second one, and then Bond shoots him immediately. He goes for the drawer or something, but he realizes his gun's not in there, and then of course Daniel Craig has the gun. Shoots him, and he's like, yes, considerably. Like it was second kill is considerably.
Made you feel it, did he? Well, you needn't worry. The second is bang. Yes, considerably.
Yes, very cool intro. And then it cuts back to the bathroom where Bond is presumably in the middle of his first kill. What I like about the scene is that it really showcases how difficult it is for this rebooted, rehashed Bond to kill somebody. Like, he's making his first kill, and it's not like we've seen Bond all through these movies where he just very easily, like, doesn't really have a problem assassinating people and killing them, and he's like, it's very realistic and like primal in a way, where he has to like beat him up, and it's like a slow go, and he's slamming his head into the sink, and I just remember being very like primal in a lot of ways. And then all of a sudden the guy is about to shoot Bond, right? He's on his like last breath, and he's going to shoot Bond, and then Bond like picks up a gun from the floor, shoots him, and there you have the gun barrel. Very cool intro. It's like that classic gun barrel Bond, and you're like, oh, okay. Like I am in a Bond movie. Okay, it makes sense now.
Exceptionally well done.
Really like the intro scene. Might be the best in the series. We could debate about that, but
it's
I
up
don't
there
know.
For sure. No,
It's
it is really well done and very different, which is nice.
I like that. Yeah, it was a good change of pace. Especially, I feel like it's a movie that took a reboot seriously.
I
really
would say
thought about
through
from beginning to
Skyfall. I would say, and we'll get to the point. It's interesting, the Daniel Craig movies being a continuity of sorts, carrying characters, carrying plots over between them, very rare in the Bond series. I feel all the way through Skyfall did a really great job of setting up, knocking down, and then rebooting what they had gone and done. Matt, is this? Maybe you don't know the answer. Are these supposed to be prequels to the other? Is this parallel story? I'm confused if there's a timeline.
As far as I understand it, this is a complete reboot. So it's supposed to be
parallel,
just
unrelated. So
like,
he's never been married to Tracy in this timeline?
No, square one.
Okay, and that's why we get a new Blofeld.
It's square one. We also kind of get a new Tracy in this, right? With Vesper Lind.
Yeah, we get a new Felix with
and a brand new Felix Leiter.
Yep.
Because Felix,
great Jeffrey Wright.
He gets his leg chewed off with in License to Kill.
That's right.
So yeah, I think it's a very true reboot in like every sense of it, where it's the character we all know and love, but it's just like kind of we hit the reset button, and we get to see him like from the ground up, which we never really see before. I mean, even with Dr. No, the first Bond movie, he is already an established character, right? So in a way, it kind of merges the fields of prequel with complete reboot. So
yeah,
in that way, I really like the movie.
Yeah.
I understand that. So the Bourne Identity. Let's talk that. Have you ever seen the Bourne Identity as a movie?
No.
Okay.
But I'm familiar with the concept.
Okay, so the Bourne Identity came out in 2002. And I think it had a lot of influence on the spy genre as a whole.
Massive. Utterly massive.
Admittedly, I had to go back. I watched a couple of YouTube videos about this, but it makes a lot of sense. Like, the Bourne Identity redefined the spy genre as a genre of film. It made the kind of the concepts behind filming a spy movie more realistic.
Yes.
But also action-centered.
Yes, so quick cuts, up close, handheld, all those sort of, really get up in there shots. You know, that's I both I like and don't like. I'll have some future complaints on that, but this idea that during an action sequence it's cut, and you're just trying to keep it as action focused as possible.
Yeah, it seems like so. What I wrote down on my notes were realistic, action centered, less whimsy. So
no
this is
whimsy.
Not your. This
no
is not
whimsy.
Okay, no whimsy. Even
Let's
better,
be clear.
Right.
Which
really
I
no whimsy.
Have a bit of beef with, but.
Zero
no
whimsy.
No.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I think that there's only one. I could be wrong about this. I probably am, but there's only one pun I remember from the whole movie, and it's when Bond is poisoned in the casino game.
Yes.
And he comes back to the table and he says, "Sorry, that last hand almost killed me."
Yeah, he does like one or two good ones per movie.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody like slipped something in his drink, which I wrote down is very un-Bond. Like, you'd think Bond, even early Bond, would watch his drink and make sure it doesn't get poisoned. Like, I
But no
don't know.
one's ever thought to do it before.
Like most college kids know to watch their drink and make
Yeah, but
sure
not
it
in a
doesn't get
fancy,
poisoned.
not in a fancy hotel in.
High stakes gambling in Montenegro. Yeah, Montenegro,
It's a classy
Europe.
place.
Yeah, the Casino Royale. Yeah, I love the opening. I like how the opening scene has there's like no dancing women. There's no like,
No, it's finally. Let me be crystal clear on this. The CGI openings of the Pierce Brosnan era are one of the worst things to happen to the Bond franchise, period. All 4 movies, in my opinion, maybe GoldenEye a little bit is okay. All 4 are terrible openings, and I think Casino Royale has a great opening. Quantum, Skyfall, Spectre, I'd say they all have pretty good openings. Maybe Spectre's a little on the fence, but I think they all have very good openings. So I think they definitely improved in this new millennium.
Yeah, agreed. I think that the Craig openings are superior to the Brosnan openings. I actually did kind of like World Is Not Enough opening just because it highlighted the whole thing with the oil. That oil was going to be like an important thing,
but it all looks so fake. It's like bad CGI.
It wasn't well done, and that's actually a big problem I had with Quantum.
Yes, the effects are terrible.
Their intro was bad.
Yeah,
but I think there are reasons for that, which we'll get into when we touch on the movie.
Yeah.
But I appreciated that there was no dancing movie. It was just Bond fighting his way.
No women in the opening.
No, it was just straight up Bond, just like fighting through guys. There was the card game. I like when the opening like alludes to what's going to happen in the film. So I really like the Bond fighting guys and cards like the Ace of Spades, the King of Spades, and stuff.
Nicely done.
And I liked how it had the 007, and then that like turns into the computer of like M, presumably inputting like 007 status granted. Mm-hmm. I thought that was pretty cool. Because it does kind of call back the idea that this is a prequel. This is a reboot, a rehash of the series like that. But yeah, it was well done. It was a well done opening.
I agree.
I don't know if you caught this, but in one of the like very first scenes where Bond is in Madagascar, I think, where he's like looking at there's like a cockfight going on.
Yes, right
like
before. Yes.
I thought this was kind of neat, so I felt like writing it down. Bond has like an inside man, and you could tell he's the inside man. Number one, because he's the only white dude in the whole crowd, which is kind of out of place. But he's like talking to Bond and communicating with him. He's making it seem like he's part of this like cockfight going on, but he's actually like spying on this one guy who's Bond's like target. Mm-hmm. And the way he gives, I don't know if you caught this, but the way he gives away his position is exactly by touching his ear.
I love that line from him.
Get your finger
out of your ear.
Get your finger out of your ear. And then the guy catches onto him and sees that he's like, oh shit,
this
like, guy is spying on me.
What? And yeah.
I thought that was extremely well done because it's like, I don't think any of the earlier Bonds would have done that.
No.
I think that Connery era Bond would have been perfectly comfortable like having a guy like this and nothing would be said about it. More Bond, I think, would have had a guy like this, nothing would be said about it. Maybe Dalton era would have called it out, but I love how
it's a great moment.
Yeah, I love how the Craig Bond is like, it makes it very clear that you're out of place. Like by doing this, you look like you're a spy. Like you're holding your contact to your ear. You're talking to like nobody in particular. It's like, that's really weird.
Well, and it establishes Bond as the smart guy, the senior guy, the serious guy. Right away.
Guy. Yeah. Right away. Get your finger out of your ear. Yeah, exactly. Like that a lot. Really, really like that the guy caught on to it. And then Bond chases him through all sorts of construction work going on and stuff. I looked it up. The guy that plays this character's name is Malaka, by the way. Mm-hmm. The guy that plays him was one of the earliest pioneers of parkour and free running.
He was great.
Yeah, so they and at that time I remember early 2000s like parkour being a really big deal. So it's like kind of a little vestige of the times.
Fun
free
fact.
running, parkour over buildings and stuff. They had video games based on it, movies. A lot of movies employed it. So it was cool. Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Well, and that pivots well into one of my big overall notes for this movie, and what I remember most from seeing it in theaters all those over a decade ago. The stunts are really great in this movie. The big
Yeah.
stunt pieces, the
Good
construction site run through at the beginning doesn't look too fakey, which I like, even though it's really over the top. It's a good mix of both. Lots of explosions, lots of running. Very great. The airport action scene where he's chasing the tanker up and down throughout the airport. Again, good action, well shot, explosions, very exciting. The towards the end of the film, the big Aston Martin car flip still holds the world record for most continuous flips in a car stunt, 7. And again, really well shot, very exciting. I thought all the stunts, top to bottom, in this movie were excellently shot. One of my favorite things about this movie.
Yeah, really good movie.
Establishing great action in this first Daniel Craig movie.
I like how this is a they show a little bit of. They keep calling back to the fact that it's a reboot, and one of the things they keep showing is that this is a shoot first, ask later Bond.
Yep.
Right. At first, he has to like kind of grow into the role of what he eventually, like the Bond that we all know and love. I love that. I think they do a really good job of showing that progression, especially in this earlier scene. How that fight ends with Malacca is he gets into like a standoff situation, and it ends up being where he shoots like a gas tank and blows the whole thing up, rather than try to take Malacca alive, which like, you know, the classic Bond would try to do.
Sure. Causes
so they
an
can
international incident.
interrogate him, and instead he shoots a gas tank, blows the whole thing up. Exactly. Causes an international incident. This is what you would expect from a novice agent who doesn't know what they're doing yet. Like the get your finger out of your ear shows that he has experience, but the shoot first, ask questions later shows that he's just not 100% there yet. He's like maybe 70 to 80% of the way. I love that. Because it feels, as the audience, we don't feel like we've missed anything. Like we feel like we're right there with him.
We're learning along with him.
Right. We saw his first kill. We saw his second kill, and now he's like on the job. He's seasoned, but he's not a veteran yet. Right. And he gets there by the end of the film, which I really like. Yeah.
Matt, can I give you a controversial opinion here?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Love it.
I think this is overall a very good movie. I think it's solid. It's maybe my favorite, maybe tied with my favorite of the Craig movies. However, I think this movie is Daniel Craig's worst individual performance. I think a lot of other things about this movie work really well. I don't think Craig is particularly good in this one.
Okay.
I'm not going to get mad at him because, as we've talked about with previous Bonds, usually their first outing rarely is their strongest. The Moore and Live and Let Die, Brosnan and GoldenEye. I think he's better in the later movies. Not that he's bad in this one. I think he's a lot better, but I don't think he's the best part of this movie, which is a shame because he really should be.
I think he... So...
Tell me I'm wrong.
All right. I think you're wrong.
Okay, great. I love it.
I think you're wrong because I think he had to grow into the role of Bond as he went along. I don't think he's the worst part of the movie, though.
No, I agree. I don't think he's the worst part of the movie. I think this movie has bigger flaws than him.
Yes,
but it's not his best.
There are flaws that are bigger than bigger than Craig. But do I think it's the weakest performance of him from these? No, I actually don't.
Which movie is weaker? Quantum?
I think his performance in I'm actually going to say Spectre.
I thought he was good in Spectre. We'll get there. I thought he was good.
We'll get there
because he has more personality. His personality in this movie is like unlikable Dick is kind of his personality. And I get that Bond is supposed to be that a little bit, but at no point
it's hard.
He never
it's hard
redeems
to
himself with the fun, because other Bonds have done this where they have to be jerks a lot, but at the end you feel like you like them to some degree. And at the end of Casino, I'm
you
like,
didn't feel that way
I don't feel
by the end.
No, I don't.
I feel like
it's
there was
earned.
real growth with his acting ability and his confidence in the role.
No, again, he's
feel
not bad in this, but I think he's better in the other movies, and I think
I
it's
thought his performance in Spectre was largely forgettable.
No, I thought he was much
sure
more
we'll get
likable.
there.
Okay, we'll get to that.
But Casino Royale. I love the writing. I guess the writing is probably the strongest.
It's a very
part
well written movie. I would
extremely well written movie.
And I think the acting bench is very strong in this movie. Daniel Craig is good. Don't get me wrong.
So who is stronger, Le Chiffre?
I would say you could toss up Mads Mikkelsen as Le Chiffre. Judi Dench is great as she is in all these. I think Skyfall is probably her best performance, but I think she's good in this.
I really happen to like her in the Brosnan movies better. Although Skyfall, but then again, Skyfall was her swan song. It was her swan song, and it was her movie, right? So it's hard to beat her in Skyfall. Skyfall excluded, I think you have a tough time. She has a good performance in
you
Golden.
know what? I think she has better chemistry with Daniel Craig. That's what I think the difference is. I like watching the two of them go off of each other than I did with her and Brosnan. I think her character is a little better in the Brosnan movies, but I like the chemistry, especially in Skyfall between.
Skyfall! It's like I said before, it's hard to beat because it is her movie. It's her swan song. It's very much written around her character, but a lot of it is the writing.
But Jeffrey Wright is good in this, and I wrote in my notes he's wasted in this. I thought he should have had a better role because Jeffrey Wright's the man, and should have had more to do. I even thought Eva Green was good in this. As Vesper Lynd, I thought she did a good job.
Oh, she was phenomenal.
She was great.
I happen to really like her. Yes, yeah. I really liked her.
Renee Mathis, Giancarlo Giannini, who played Renee Mathis. I just thought the acting top to bottom was really good in this one, and helped by a great script.
Maybe it does overshadow Craig in a way, but again, it is his first Bond. I think there has to be some leeway for every first Bond,
and that's why That's why I still like the movie. He does not ruin the movie by any stretch.
No, he definitely doesn't. He doesn't come across as a bad Bond, which is what a lot of the press was, strangely because of his hair color, which I find very odd. But that was 2006.
Believe me, he was much worse in what was it, Cowboys and Aliens.
Yeah,
he was terrible in that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I liked this the establishment. The first time we understand that Bond is when he takes his adversary's Aston Martin and his girlfriend in a game of cards.
Yes.
Like that's when you're like, oh, okay. Like that's kind of the callback to like previous Bond. It's like he beat his main adversary in a card game, got the cool car that we all know. That like that's the bridge where
the winky.
Yes, that was cool. I like that little nod.
Yeah, they didn't overdo it.
Yeah, but it didn't overdo it. It was like, okay, we understand this is still Bond. Like it's still a Bond movie. Sean, did you happen to notice that there was no Bond theme at all during this movie?
I wrote in my notes a direct
quote very
here.
End.
This movie is so quiet. This movie overall, there was no score in the movie. It was for long stretches, absolutely no music. And I don't know if I agree with that. I felt like not that I needed a ton, but the movie felt muted to some degree because of the lack of music. I was very surprised as I was listening to it. I'm like, these long stretches where the audio, there's like nothing going on.
No, just like footsteps or people like shuffling cards, or
I don't know,
especially
if there was
around the card
with the score. I mean, it was like there was the action scenes were really the only time you heard any kind of music.
Right, and they were. I mean, they were like the first act and the third act of the movie. Like the whole middle section with the card game and everything, and the romance with Vesper Lynd, very quiet. Yeah, very subdued.
Yeah,
I kind of like that because it really does. It puts you in a place where you almost forget that this is a Bond movie.
Yes,
like
it makes
there
you
are a
focus
lot
on
of
the cards.
Yeah, there are a lot of moments where this, like, if you were to take this movie out, make it its own thing, and change all the actors' names, it'd be a very good standalone thriller. Right? Like say you change, like you this is not like Bond at all. There's just some dude playing cards, a high stakes card game with an eco terrorist, and you have some kind of investment in it. He falls in love with this girl. They romance each other. They fall deeply in love, but it turns out the girl is a double agent, and she has a debt to pay to this guy who's blackmailing her, her ex-boyfriend, who's blackmailing her. Bond has to choose between his career and the love of his life, potentially. But it ends up that he tries to save his love, but she dies. And
it's a nice story.
I think it's a neat standalone, but by the end, then you like remember. It's almost like you forget. Like I got into a headspace the first time I saw it, and the next time when I rewatched it for this podcast, I got almost into a headspace where I forgot it was a Bond movie, legitimately. And I think the lack of score contributes to that.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
I got into like this thinking where it's like, oh wait, then by the end, when he said, like, it's the moment where he says the bitch is dead, and then he's talking to M on the phone, where I'm like, oh right, it's a Bond movie. That's right. It's like it's kind of neat in a way, where it's like, oh yeah, that's right. He has a job to do. He's got a mission. I haven't felt that way about a Bond movie, I think, since On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Sure, very un-Bondy.
Like, yeah, he falls in love, and you kind of root for him. I can imagine if I was alive at the time being like, oh, this might be the last Bond movie. He gets married.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue they're very similar movies in a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways, sure. Absolutely. I guess it helps that when On Her Majesty's was made, they were going to make Casino Royale, but they couldn't obtain the rights to it. So it very well could have been that movie. But yeah. I love that. I just love that, like, it puts you in this space and then immediately like jolts you out of it. I've never seen a Bond movie where we're so closely related to the character of Bond. Maybe since License to Kill might be the last one where we're like so ensconced with Bond.
Well, and I think it's true of almost all the Daniel Craig movies, maybe not Spectre as much, but the movies are about Bond, period. End of discussion, end of sentence. The villains, I would argue, in these movies are fine. They range from fine to pretty good, but they're never the focus of the story. Even the Bond girls aren't the focus of the story. I mean, this really is a Bond-centric series at this point. No doubt about it. When you think back to some of the like Roger Moore films, you're like, Roger Moore, like in some of those movies, is like the third most interesting character in his own movies. Sure. Whereas it's all about Daniel Craig. Yeah,
I feel like this might just be the Moore movies, but they Connery to a certain extent too. They focus a lot on scenery and a little bit of the like exotic side of being a secret agent. Like those movies make you want to take your average boring life and make it like Bond. These movies are like you're right there with Bond every minute, and it presents a human side to him that I think is very endearing.
I mean, a third of this movie takes place in one room, you know?
Just playing cards.
Think about that. I mean, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. And the other locations they go to aren't that really interesting either.
No, and the card game is in Montenegro.
Yeah,
like Central Europe, like in a casino.
Been there, done that.
Bruh. It's not about the environment. That's what makes the writing even stronger. I would say.
I agree. Matt, can I tell you the single biggest flaw in this movie?
Yes, I wanted to get to that. Let's talk about the flaws.
One word. Do you know what that word is? One word that, for me, sunk some degree of this movie.
One word that sunk this movie?
Part of it. I wouldn't say it destroyed it, but I feel like it certainly had a negative impact on a film that would have been better without it.
Lens flare. Is that one word?
Was there a lot of lens flare in this?
No, there wasn't. There was no lens flare at all.
Abrams.
Yes. All right.
5
one
letters.
Word. 5. Oh, we're playing
Hangman.
Hangman now. I was going to say Wheel of Fortune.
That too.
Letters. Well, Craig has 5 letters.
It's not Daniel Craig.
Not Daniel. Okay.
It's not Daniel Craig.
That's
it has
good.
to do with the plot of the movie. It's
5
not a character
letters.
or actor. It starts with a P. And it ends with an ochre.
Oh, wait,
Poker.
what?
Poker is the worst thing about this movie.
I literally would have never even guessed that. You should have just said, Matt, I'll stop you there. You're not going to guess that. There's no way.
Nope.
Poker was your biggest flaw of this movie?
Yup. I'm not kidding.
All right. Explain
Sit
yourself.
and enjoy this.
Explain yourself.
Matt, here's the thing, right? Bond has gambled in, I would argue, more than half of the Bond films, right? He usually plays Baccarat or he just drinks at the bar. The thing about poker is it is exceptionally boring to watch in a movie. It's not. The reason it's interesting on TV is because you see what cards everybody has, there's on-screen graphics to tell you who will win, and announcers explaining how the game is played. In this movie, literally, the movie chugs along through the first part pretty well, and as soon as they get to the scenes around the table of them playing poker are so uninteresting, because it literally, the only thing you have to go, there's no music, there's no anything. All you're going off of is their faces, which you can really only do so much with. And it was driving me crazy because the whole time you had Renee Mathis over in the corner explaining to Vesper Lynn the time anything would happen. Oh, Bond will have to pull an ace here to win the game. And it's like, don't explain to me what's going on in the movie. I, as the viewer, should be able to figure this out without being told what's happening. It was driving me crazy. The whole fake tell thing with Le Chiffre, I saw that coming a zillion miles away. I saw that from fucking outer space.
Oh, so this might have been the part of the movie where I kind of zoned out.
Exactly.
And I think most of us did.
It's like the action is so good in this movie, and then to like drag it to a halt in the middle of the movie.
I admit.
I like the idea, but they should have cut that whole thing in like half.
I'll admit, even as a 15-year-old watching this movie in theaters, or 16, whatever, I still had like a little bit of disbelief that they're playing Texas Hold'em at a high-stakes casino in Montenegro,
and you know,
in Europe.
It was in 2006, right when World Series of Poker was really
Yes,
popular.
and I know that's why they did it. They did it because poker had reached its kind of the height of its popularity. It was all over ESPN. It was all over all kinds of sports networks. High stakes poker was big back then. But Bond doesn't play poker.
No.
You don't play poker at a casino in Montenegro.
No.
You play Baccarat. You play like medieval French games.
I'd rather him play a fake video game against Maximilian like he did in Never Say Never Again.
No, don't say that.
No, that was cool. That was cool. Shut up.
True.
That was cool.
There was nothing cool about that.
That was so cool.
Lame. And just
awesome.
As boring as listening to Mathis explain.
Well, yeah, because you had no idea what was going on. But no,
yeah.
It just was odd.
I agree with you.
And what drove me crazy is that I thought, and we can talk about Mads Mikkelsen for a minute as Le Chiffre, who I thought was really good in this movie. I love the idea of his character, the terrorist banker. So he's a rich evil guy, but he's also beholden to terrorists, so he can also get his ass kicked, which I thought was great. I thought the crying blood thing was dumb because it never plays into the movie. Is that from the book?
It's true to the book. It is. Okay. That's how the character is in the book. So they tried to just mimic the book.
Dumb, but I feel like his talent is wasted because he spends half of his screen time just sitting and staring at Bond across the table. And I'm like, if Bond's gonna fight this interesting villain character, then do it in an awesome way than just defeating him with your mind. Like, that's not exciting.
I think that it kind of calls to mind like a plot hole that I watched. I don't know if you've ever seen How It Should Have Ended. I watched the How It Should Have Ended for Casino Royale back when it came out. It basically it's a little YouTube channel where they make like 3-minute shorts that are animated that like redo the ending of like every movie. That's like How It Should Have Ended. Mm-hmm. The How It Should Have Ended for Casino Royale. It's got an animated M and an animated Bond. and the animated M is like, Bond, you're going to have to play Le Chiffre in this high stakes poker game in order to defeat him. Is the only way. And Bond is like, wait, couldn't we just arrest him and expedite him?
Yep. Oh,
and
yeah,
she's
well,
like, no, you must defeat him in this high stakes poker game. That's the only way we'll expose him. He's like, well, I'm pretty sure he's broken all of these rules. Like, he's a terrorist. Couldn't we just arrest him? And like, she finally caves in, is like, fine, we'll do it your way. And they just throw him in the back of a paddy wagon and drive off.
Well, it's that.
And M is like, wasn't that yeah, sure, okay, we did it your way, Bond, but wasn't that a lot less fun and exciting?
Well, it's that great Vesper Lynn line in the movie where she's like, if you lose, you're directly financing terrorism.
Yes.
And it's that other thing too, where Bond loses the first 10 million, has to go to Vesper for another 5 million to buy back in. So he's playing poker to win the money back you already lost is a terrible plan.
Yeah.
Like, that's you're right. At that point, like, if you want to go in and gamble the first 10 and then arrest him, okay, maybe.
Right. That's the point
like,
where you step in and be like, I have a badge. Like, you're going to jail.
Like, you got to shut that shit down.
Yeah. Interpol is intervening or something. I admit, the plot is not airtight, but it is a Bond movie.
It is. It's good, though.
It's about playing cards. I don't agree with the 5 card. That's very much a sign of the times. I wish they had kept it with Baccarat. That's the classic Bond.
But then again, game. There would have been even more explanation as to what's going on. That's the problem. Like, just
the thing is, they never explained Baccarat before. Like,
no,
Bond
but also
just plays, and you're like, oh, that's. I still to this day don't know how Baccarat works.
But the difference is, the Baccarat in the previous movies was not integral to the plot. It was more of a setting. Like, honestly, do it on the roll of a dice. Do it on a roulette table. Oh, if it lands on black, I kill you. If it lands on red, you live. Like,
you just know that, like, Bond wins because he's awesome.
I like the gambling aspect. Yeah. But, have it be chess even.
The rules of the game are not plot centric. No. It's true. But I did like the part where Bond like he's winning, so they try to off him and they poison his drink and.
Oh yeah, with the defibrillator, which is great. Yeah,
that was kind of neat. I liked how he gets captured, and the torture scene is pretty great.
Ooh, very unpleasant.
Very unpleasant to watch.
But that is, I think that is one of Daniel Craig's best moments in the film, where he says, oh, I have an itch down there. Could you scratch it for me?
Yes, the world will know that you died scratching my balls. Yes. That's a very great line, very Bond-esque line. Yeah.
But God, that was hard to watch.
Hard to watch, yes.
Matt, we've done almost an hour just on our first movie tonight, so unfortunately, I'm going to press us to move on, unless you have anything else to add. We didn't really talk too much about Vesper Lynn, who continues to play a role in future movies. Eva Green, who I thought was great. It was another one of those.
I do want to mention.
Yes,
I want to mention like the very end.
Yes.
So this like leads into the next movie. We either will have a lot to talk about with this next movie or very little to talk about, depending. But I love the ending scene very much. Like I really enjoyed the beginning scene, the callback to like where you I mean, I mentioned before the line, "The bitch is dead," kind of like centering you back, and it's like, okay, this is a Bond movie. Like Bond has all these illusions about like, oh, we'll have a honeymoon and I'll have kids and we'll retire. He's got this very ideal picture painted in his mind, and then it kind of like reality shocks him back into like who he is and what he does. After Vesper Lynn drowns in the elevator, there's that awesome scene where the guy answers his phone. He's like, "Who is this?" And he like a bullet just hits him in the leg.
Yep.
All of a sudden, Craig enters the frame, bottom to top. Like the camera just pans up. He goes, "The name's Bond, James Bond." Bond theme, like,
it's great.
Starts very cool and like exit scene, very cool, very Bond. First time you hear the Bond film throughout the entire movie. They saved it for the very end. Mm-hmm. I love the beginning and the end. The middle was a little dry in some parts for sure. But they really, I think the intro and the ending to this movie were like the kind of the bookends that I liked it overall as a reboot to a Bond franchise. And now the end very much transitions into the next movie we're going to talk about, which is Quantum of Solace. Came out 2 years later,
yes.
2008. but is supposed to take place just an hour after the ending of
Yes.
Casino Royale.
Very rare for a Bond film. Not only is there continuity, it's immediate continuity. They don't fool around. Yeah, we can pivot over to Quantum of Solace.
Yeah, it's established that this is only an hour after the ending of Casino Royale, after the intro scene, which is a car chase through the streets of Siena, Italy.
Yes.
When Bond opens the trunk up and he's got the guy from the previous movie from
Mr.
Casino
White.
Royale, Mr. White. He's got him in the trunk of his car and he says, "Okay, time to get out," and then enter the intro sequence.
Yes.
What do you think about this intro?
Well, I would be very mad if I didn't quickly mention, and I think we're in agreement of this, Chris Cornell's You Know My Name from Casino Royale. We're both big fans. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are. We agree.
All right. I just want to
agree
point
on
that out
that.
because as we jump into the opening of Quantum of Solace, I agree that whole bit with Mr. White is very good. I have an issue with how that starting action sequence and all the action sequences in this film are shot, but I'll get to that. I think the opening's fine. Are you talking about like the music intro opening?
No, just the
opening with Mr. White.
Yeah, by opening with the car chase with zero dialogue. The first thing I'm thinking of in my mind is Octopussy with the I guess there was dialogue in that though. Has there ever been a Bond intro with zero dialogue?
I don't have the memory for that kind of thing, but I think
I'm going to throw one out there. Thunderball. Was there dialogue in that? He fights the guy. He's a widow at the funeral. He fights him.
Yeah, there's a little bit.
Little bit of dialogue.
A couple sentences, not much.
Right. Is this the first Bond movie that intros with zero dialogue?
I don't know. That's a good question. Email us up for debate. TV@gmail.com. Let us know if we're
the answer to this.
Tweet it at us. I know. I think it's a quality opening. I just think it's such an interesting choice to so closely link these movies together.
Right. I agree. It's
I don't know if I like it.
I definitely don't. I'm going to go out and say I don't. I don't know. I don't like that it's like it's so beholden to you having to have seen Casino Royale. Yes. It wasn't marketed as a direct sequel, even though it is the next Bond movie in the series. I guess that's kind of what bothers me about it, is that it wasn't like, this is not called Casino Royale 2. It's a completely different film. So I don't know.
Yeah, but I would almost argue that in this one, it's not as bad in Quantum as it is in Skyfall, I would argue, or even Spectre, because you have Dominic Green, you have Quantum, you're introducing new elements that are only tangentially related to the first film. I agree this opening bit is very closely related, but the rest of the movie I don't feel is really... I feel like Skyfall is more directly connected to the issues of the previous films, and even Spectre.
It's hard because like this, I think this movie works if you were somehow in like an alternate universe where it was socially acceptable to make films that were like 4 hours in length and launch them out in the theaters. This movie absolutely works as a direct attachment to Casino Royale. If Casino Royale could be like 4 hours long and be this movie combined with Casino Royale, it would totally work in every way.
And that's what's really interesting. I agree/disagree. I think it actually makes more sense to edit Quantum of Solace to be its standalone movie. I would rather you cut references to Mr. White and to the action in the previous film and just make this a standalone movie, which I think you could do without major reshoots. I definitely think you could. And I think that would be better. I think that would be better because I'm going to be honest, I know Quantum of Solace is not really anyone's favorite. I actually, again, it's not my favorite, but I actually did enjoy a lot of elements of this movie. And I think it would be better standing alone.
So it's worth mentioning, and I actually never thought of it at the time, but it's kind of an obvious thing. when you look at it. This movie came out in 2008.
Yes.
We think of Bond movies as like a product of their era.
Yes.
When the movie was shooting, it was during the writer's strike. So a lot of the major ideas that would have worked very well in this movie, were cut, or at least were. I read an article where they were saying that when this movie was being made, the actors were kind of asked to write what their characters would do, like in different scenes and in different scenarios, which is not really traditionally how movies are shot. Usually you have like a script in mind, you have pacing in mind. It was very much bare bones, which I understand. Yeah, there basically was no script. Yeah, it was, or at least a kind of a
they wrote it on the fly.
Exactly, yeah. like a primordial script, which makes a lot of sense. Like looking back,
you watch this movie, it's very clear there was barely a script.
Oh yes,
I don't disagree with that at all.
It is clear. So I kind of want to award this movie like some kind of like booby prize and be like, okay, well you tried.
Yeah,
you tried.
Points for effort.
Going in, I was so ready to just tear this movie to shreds, but looking at it as a product of its era and saying like, well, this was a time when the writer's strike was going on, when people were kind of uncertain as to the future of Bond. Casino Royale was a massive success generally,
yes.
At, the box office.
Huge success.
But the direction of Bond was sort of uncertain. I think it's kind of fair to say with any reboot of any series, right? Is that the direction of that series is kind of like it's hard to gauge where it will go after this, right? Like I think you see it with any reboot, but
yes.
Yeah, I don't know. It would have worked super well if a lot of the movie had been boiled down into like an hour or an hour and a half and attached to Casino Royale. No, I think it would work perfectly.
I see. I'm still going to disagree with you on that because this movie is a lot closer to the traditional James Bond formula, certainly than Casino Royale or Skyfall, where you've got action pieces, you've got a clear villain, you've got a Bond girl. I just think it's closer to it's not 100% there, but it's closer to the formula. I wish they had leaned on that more because I liked the Dominic Green character. I thought that was appealing to watch. I thought Camille, who is the main Bond girl in this film, I thought she was fantastic. I thought that was a really interesting character, out getting her revenge, and helping James Bond deal with his need for revenge. I thought Judi Dench was great in this, as she always is. Even the terribly named Strawberry Fields, the short-lived MI6 agent who dies in a great homage to Goldfinger, I thought was good. I just thought there were good pieces of this movie that never finished the puzzle.
See, you say great homage to Goldfinger. I actually wrote down.
You didn't like it?
I changed your wording was great. I said weird homage to Goldfinger. I said girl covered in oil. I like it was kind of out of left field. It's
do you actually know the reason they did that?
No, was there a reason?
Well, there's like one of those cheesy explanations where, the environmental theme of the movie and Dominic Green, and that today oil is as valuable as gold. That's the sort of thought behind it.
Okay.
Which I didn't know till I read it in an article either.
I didn't read that article, no. But if I had, okay. I kind of see the okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of that in this movie where they're like, oh, we did it because of this weird reason. And you're like, but as a viewer of the movie, I didn't understand that. So you kind of missed the point. There was a lot of that.
Yeah, that's a very twee explanation of why the girl is painted in oil. I did see the connection with Goldfinger, but I thought it was kind of ham-fisted. I was like, what the hell? Like, okay, we get it. It's Bond. Like, but what, why? Like, it wasn't. I just felt like it wasn't earned.
Yeah.
But now your explanation makes some sense. Yeah, it was like gold. Okay, oil is the new gold. Is kind of like I guess the point they were making.
But one thing I did put in my notes about this movie on a positive note is that I wrote, this one handles the Bond's gone too far bit very well. Because in a lot of these, not a lot, in several of the Bond movies, we get the Bond, you've gone too far this time, right? And I feel like this movie does a really good job of, with Judi Dench, with Daniel Craig, with him having to escape being arrested and all this. I just think, him out for revenge. I just think that part of the movie is very well acted. I think Daniel Craig is a bit better in this one because he's got more to work with from the revenge grief angle. And I think it's a little bit more well written where the action is a little bit greater. The music comes back in, so it feels a little bit more alive and like something might actually happen that's interesting. And I did like that element of this movie. That I think worked.
Yeah, I going along with that, I really like the ending of the end line of the film that M has. Like Bond, she says, "Bond, I need you," and Bond says, or no, she says, "I need you back, Bond, I need you back," and Daniel Craig as Bond says, "I never left."
Yep.
I really like that end of that like little ending of the movie. I like that he didn't kill the guy and he makes it known. He's like, I didn't kill him. He's still alive.
Which was very interesting.
Which was interesting. It shows that Bond has matured as a character. Like I interrogated him. I was rough, but I didn't kill him. And that's the Bond that we know. So it's kind of like that level progression.
Yeah, we see it through all these movies, which is
that
I think,
maturation.
That's the part that works about making these movies a continuity, is seeing the character change. To me, that's the only thing that's valuable out of doing that. Because I really don't care that but it wasn't Quantum, it was Spectre. He was out, he was following the whole time. Oh, he was behind all of it. Like, I don't give a shit about that, but I do love the fact that, and I give Daniel Craig a lot of credit for this as an actor, he evolves that character through these movies very well.
Yeah, he does. He really does. He understands the role that he's in. He understands that he's the kind of the reboot Bond.
Now, Matt, can I share with you, if I may,
yeah.
my key flaw of this movie?
Oh boy,
Sean,
there are so
Sean's
many.
key flaw.
There are so many.
I know there are a lot,
They tried. This movie really tried, Sean. This is like a kid that brought home their art project from preschool. They're like, I tried.
But seriously, this was one of those Bond movies where when I started, I'm like, I'm probably not going to like this. And as the movie went on, I'm like, this isn't bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it has good moments. But to me, not the single biggest flaw, that's not fair. One of the most noticeable flaws for me, this movie is shot terribly. It's directed badly. I don't think it's good. This one was directed by Mark Forrester, okay? This is his first ever action movie. Prior to this, he directed Halle Berry in Monsters Ball. He did Finding Neverland. He did Will Ferrell in Stranger Than Fiction, The Kite Runner. This is his first ever action film. And he went on to direct World War Z, which was another disaster of a film. And a movie you owned, Matt, Disney's Christopher Robin.
Oh, that's right. I did. That was one of my classic purchases in the movie draft.
No more action for him. But the action scenes are cut so badly, and the CGI is so terrible in this movie. I did an experiment, Matt. You'll appreciate my dedication to the program that I did this. Do you remember right after Mr. White escapes, right? The interrogation?
Right. M's bodyguard is like on his side.
Yes.
She says like, we've got people everywhere.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm with you.
And then they have that chase on the rooftops and shit.
Yes.
Okay.
And they fall down together.
Yes, they fall down together. Okay. The scene starting where they fall through the glass of that skylight.
Okay.
All the way through to Bond shooting him and ending the fight. Okay. It's 70 seconds of film. I timed it. Okay. 1 minute, 10 seconds. In 70 seconds, there are 91 cuts in the film.
Wow.
It's unwatchable, Matt. It's I could not tell what was going on, and all of the action scenes in the movie were like this.
Come to mention it, there's that scene where M's bodyguard betrays M, where he says like we've got people everywhere. Isn't that right?
Yep.
I thought when I saw the movie in theaters, I remember thinking that the bodyguard shoots M because of the editing, because of the cut.
Yeah. It
looks very much like he shoots M. It looks very clear, and I was like, oh shit, M is dead. And then M doesn't reappear until a few scenes later. She's got like a broken arm. The way the is done, it makes it seem like he shoots M. So you're right. I think you're right on this. The editing is not great.
No, it really hurts the film because I do think I loved the opera scene where they're having the quantum meeting at the opera. I thought
that was probably the best scene in the movie.
And by the way, they built that whole set and got like 1,000 extras to fill that thing. I mean, it was really nice. I thought James Bond was really good. Daniel Craig was really good in that scene. He was kind of funny and he was jumping in, and
it was very Bondian.
That
it was very like you could see pretty much every Bond up until this point. You could see Moore, you could see Connery, you could definitely see Dalton in that role. It's like, okay, this is what Bond does. Like this is true Bond. Like identifying people in the crowd and communicating with them over the little earpiece. It was good. It was very Bond.
That was a great scene. But then a little while after that, we have the plane chase where it's Bond's in his plane and he's being shot at and all this. The CGI on those planes is so bad. So bad. It's like it's 2008. Come on. You can do better. Like it sucked. And I was like, it really, again, this is such a weird movie because there are elements I think that really work, but there are so many more that just don't. And it's not a bad movie, but it's not a good movie. It's as you said, it's a weird movie. I agree with that.
It's weird.
100%. At the end of it, I'm like, what did I just watch?
Like there are weird choices. Like as much as I kind of, my rewatch has given me a sense of sympathy for it, being that it was made during the writer's strike and that it was a follow up to the massively successful Casino Royale.
Yeah.
Like there are just some weird choices. Like for example, when Mathis dies, Bond like looks at it. He's like holding the body in his arms, and then he just dumps him in a dumpster.
Yeah.
And you're left to think of it as like, oh well, okay, so maybe this is like a colder, like less connected Bond, and he just doesn't care. But like Mathis was his friend, like. But
at the same time,
leaves him in a dumpster.
But Bond does seem emotional about it, which is weird.
He is. He's emotional about it until he dumps the body in the dumpster, like casually, like. It's like what? Like you don't know your character at that point. Like Bond wouldn't do that.
No,
like
it's 2 hours of a bunch of stuff happening. Is really what this movie is. They just
it's like they were halfway through it. They had a budget for it, and they were like, "Let's just get it done."
And
like, let's
by
just
the
finish
way,
this.
I don't have. Let me see if I can get a list of the run times for all these movies. I think this is the one of the shortest, if not the shortest, James Bond movie. It's an hour and 45 minutes.
That sounds like it would be one of the shortest.
No, wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, an hour and 45
I can try
minutes.
to confirm it for you.
106. I think it is because I watched the time on just about all the movies we watched, and they're all pretty much 2 hours, give or take. So this may be one of the shortest, and I'm not surprised.
No, I can confirm. This is the shortest Bond film at 106 minutes.
Yeah.
Shortest Bond film to date.
Do you have the longest in that list?
While
you're in there,
Sure. I'm gonna. Do you want to make a guess while we're here?
Oh boy, it might be. I think it might be Skyfall or Spectre. I think it's one of the more recent ones. I'm gonna say Spectre seemed really long. Spectre is well over 2 hours.
On the nose. Spectre was the longest Bond film.
What was that? 2:15.
2 hours and what?
2:15, 2:30,
2:40.
Oh Jesus Christ!
2:40. Yeah, Spectre came in at 2:40. Casino Royale followed right behind it at 2:25.
And Skyfall was long.
Immediately behind it at 2:23.
Yeah, movies these days are just too goddamn long.
Sean, you want to guess what? Might be kind of obvious, but the pre-Craig Bond that came in before Skyfall.
Oh, in terms of longest?
Yeah. If you had to venture a guess,
I'm gonna say License to Kill.
it was not. That's actually the
One of the shorter ones.
No.
Oh.
License to Kill was right behind this film.
Oh, okay. So I was in the ballpark. What is it? I'm
You
curious.
License to Kill is number 5.
Yeah.
It's On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Comes in at 2
Yeah,
hours and 22.
You know what? That
Just
movie
1
has
minute
a lot
shorter
of
than
plot.
Skyfall.
A lot of plot in that one.
A lot of plot, lot of juice.
Telly Savalas really stretching those minutes.
A lot of juice to that meat. Then License to Kill is after that. Never Say Never Again and the original Casino Royale are in between, but I don't really. Those aren't really canon in my mind. So, for the Bond purists out there, Die Another Day is after that, and that's a merciless 2 hours and 23.
Yeah, that one felt long. They
13
feel long. That's what it is. They feel long. Spectre felt forever. Felt like 3 movies.
It did.
Matt, any other thoughts on
closing thoughts on Quantum of Solace? What I kind of liked about this is something I only learned doing research on it. It's just a little interesting bit of trivia for the fans out there. It's named after not a Fleming novel, but this is the first Bond film since Man with the Golden Gun that is named after a Fleming short story. The Fleming short story Quantum of Solace, which I mean honestly, when the movie came out in theaters, I thought they pulled the name right out of their ass. I didn't really know,
it does sound made
I
up.
had no idea this came from a Fleming short story, but if you look at the synonyms for each word in the title, it translates to a measure of comfort. So a quantum is a measurement or a measure, and solace is a comfort. Like I take solace in that, I take comfort in that. So a measure of comfort and then a quantum of solace. So it's a little fun fact there. I actually would have rather the Bond movie be called A Measure of Comfort. Could you imagine that? Like
A Measure? No, that sounds like one of those like Downton Abbey type shows.
It really does. It does. A measure of comfort. Like an episode of Game of Thrones or something.
Mm-hmm. Now, Matt, would you like to know
the
other short stories in For Your Eyes Only that Quantum of Solace was in?
Yeah. Let's hear it.
From A View to a Kill.
Okay.
That's where that comes from. For Your Eyes Only. Then Quantum of Solace. Then Risico, which is
probably the name of the next Bond movie.
Which never turned into anything.
Until next Bond movie, whatever the next Bond movie is. Yeah.
Well, it might be the Hildebrand Rarity, which was the 5th story. But if you remember, the safe house inspector that M goes to meet Bond is called Hildebrand Antiques, and that's where it comes from.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Matt, my summary on this film, I think the one thing it does the most successfully out of the whole movie that I enjoyed the most is we get to see James Bond after his lover has been killed, which we don't get in Her Majesty's because they basically forget she exists. And I love that we get a whole movie of his grief and his revenge and a little bit of License to Killish, but I just feel like if you only take that away from this movie, I think you get something from it.
Well, I think we get a modicum of revenge.
Well, he certainly feels like he gets revenge.
I want to say, what was it? A View to a Kill? What was the? Now I'm trying to backtrack.
We've seen too many of these.
We've seen so many of these.
Oh, Lord.
The movie right after On Her Majesty's, where the opening sequence is him like beating people up. Because he's trying to find Spectre.
Diamonds Are Forever.
Pissed. Thank you. Diamonds Are Forever. We get a modicum of this. We get a Quantum of Solace, if you will, of revenge. But we don't get an entire film that's based on it. And what I want to say is that when this film was made, the original writing direction was going to be based around flashbacks of Bond and Vesper like relating information to Bond that he would then use to solve problems in Quantum, which, I mean, admittedly, I think we all know would have been a much better film.
Oh, like 1,000,000% better.
But the writer's strike that went on kind of like stymied that.
No, and Eva
really
Green doesn't
cut
come
that
cheap,
short.
so
Right.
yeah.
So when you have actors writing their own scenes and writing their own characters, it gets kind of ugly. So sometimes. Yep. So that's Quantum of Solace.
That it is, Matt, and we've got to continue on to our third Daniel Craig movie. It's not just an Adele song, it's also a movie, Skyfall, coming out in October of 2012. It made over $1 billion. It's the highest-grossing film ever in the UK, the highest-grossing film ever in the Bond series, the second highest-grossing film of 2012. Do you know what the first is? 2012.
Thinking back on, it was, of course, the movie Apocalypto, directed by Mel Gibson.
No, that's not even in the
sure?
top 10. What are you talking about?
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Apocalypto by Mel Gibson?
Worldwide, Matt.
I thought everybody saw that movie.
No, Skyfall B, The Dark Knight Rises, The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey,
The
Amazing
that's right.
Spider-Man.
Okay. So Apocalypto came out in 2006. Really?
Yes.
Is that really true?
2012 we're looking at.
Why? Okay. I'm very confused now.
Was it even the highest grossing? It wasn't even the highest grossing in 2006.
No, it wasn't. I for some reason I thought it came out in 2012 because it had to do with the Mayans.
No, that would have made too much sense.
2012, like the end of the world. I don't know. I read into things a lot. I'm a history guy.
Matt, the answer we were looking for, 2012's highest grossing movie, The Avengers.
What? The Avengers?
The Avengers, the first Avengers movie.
Never heard of it.
Okay. You're not missing much. Yeah, Matt, our crew's back, and this time it is personal. This movie, Matt. I saw this movie at a midnight showing, and it revealed to me that I goddamn hate midnight showings, and I will never do it again.
Really?
So I think that's...
No. Like no midnight showings?
No, I'm not getting up at midnight to see a damn movie, and then I get home at like 3 a.m. I'll fall asleep during the movie. I'm not doing it.
What if you don't have work the next day?
Doesn't matter.
You like sleep the whole day.
Does not. It's not.
What if
worth
it's
it.
like
there's no movie I need to see at midnight, especially now that theaters do like 8 p.m. Thursday showings or whatever. I don't need to see midnight movies anymore. Not gonna.
What if you want to like dress in costume and like no?
Nope, I can do that at home.
You can do it at home.
I can do that at home, in the comfort of my own home. Yeah. So I think that's partly why I was kind of flaky on it the first time around. And then rewatching it, I did like it a lot more. But I do have a major flaw to point out in this film as well. But we'll get to that, Matt. What do you think? What do you think of Skyfall?
Sean,
jump in there. Get in on it.
Have you ever, like, when you go to movie theaters, right?
Yes.
Are there scenes where the audience will? This is something that can only be experienced, in my mind, at a true movie theater.
Yep.
Are there scenes where the audience like stands up and claps at certain moments where you're like really happy?
I feel like it happens more rare these days, but
yes. I can point to a specific moment. I guess most recently noted in the most recent Avengers movie. Kind of the climactic scene. I won't spoil it for our listeners, but there's a
hang on. Oh no, I don't like that sound. That means we've lost Matt.
No, I'm back.
You're back.
I accidentally leaned the microphone stand on my airplane button. Very, very haphazard, very un-Bondian move.
For those who can't see, I rolled my eyes very hard.
So there's a scene in the most recent Avengers movie where people very much like stood up and clapped and like applauded at the scene. In Casino Royale, the scene where Daniel Craig as Bond puts on the tuxedo for the very first time and like looks in the mirror and he's like looking at himself. I remember very clearly seeing that movie back in 2006 and people clapped at that part because they were like, Bond is back. It's very much like a like a reestablishment of the Bond character. The next time I remember them doing the same thing was at the very end of this movie, Skyfall, in 2011. Did you have that experience with any other movie, or is it just me?
I do not have a good enough memory to. I tend to remember more like sad moments in movies where people are like crying than I do people cheering.
So I don't mean to cut to the end of Skyfall, but the end where Bond seems to have thwarted the terrorist threat. He's like brought London back to a sense of normalcy, a sense of regularcy. He's on the roof with the new M, who's played by Ralph. I never know how to pronounce his last name. Fiennes? Fiennes? I think it's Fiennes.
I think it's Fiennes.
Ralph Fiennes.
He's great.
Voldemort.
Yes.
He announces he's going to be the new M. He's going to take over as M, and he says something along the lines of like, you know, you're our agent. You're our, what is it? He says like something along the lines of like, you're basically the hero that we need, but not the one we deserve.
Yeah.
But without the plagiarism. I remember people actually like clapping at that. And clapping at the very end because he's on the scene. He's on the rooftops of MI6, and you see like the Big Ben, and you see like Parliament in the background, and it's like Bond is acknowledged as this cultural icon. It's very cool. I just remember it being a very neat moment in cinema.
Matt.
Yeah.
I will give you a crisp $100 bill. If you can guess the last movie I saw in theaters.
What?
Yep. I will give you a crisp $100 bill if you can guess. And you will get up to 3 hints if you ask for them.
Watch me get it. How many guesses do I get?
You get 3. And or you know what? You get 4, and I'll add a hint each time.
Give me the first hint right
No, your first guess is free.
Okay. My first guess is free?
Yes.
Secret Life of Pets.
Come on. That
seems like such a Sean movie.
Why? I'm almost a little hurt by that. I'm a little hurt by that. Okay. Here we go. Clue number 1, 2017.
That was pre-Infinity War.
Yes.
So it wasn't.
I'll give you a freebie clue. It's not a Marvel movie.
Not a Marvel movie. A movie that Sean would have seen in theaters in 2017. Was literally the last movie you've seen in theaters?
I don't go to movie theaters.
Aren't you the director of the movie league?
Yeah, I don't have to see the movies. I have to gamble the movies. I don't have to see them. That's the best part of it. I don't have to see them.
And it's not a Marvel movie.
Take a guess, because you're going to get another clue after this guess.
What was the movie where it's I'm not going to cheat by Googling movies.
No, you cannot Google anything.
I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't do that. What was that movie that came out?
Just guess anything.
That was really like cheesy, but it won a lot of awards. It was directed by Mark Wahlberg. Manchester by the Sea.
What?
Was that a 2017 movie that you saw?
No, that's not a movie I saw, and I don't know if it's from 2017. All right, your next clue. Oscar-winning film.
Silver Linings Playbook.
Is that your guess?
Yeah.
Wrong. That was way earlier than 2017. That's like a 2014, 2015 film. And your final... Animated.
I feel like I've been in a time capsule since I moved to Virginia, so I don't really...
No, I just think all the culture blends together now. That's the problem. It's animated. That's your last clue.
Whoa, it's animated?
That's your final clue. You're not going to... You get one more guess and no more clues.
Coco.
Yes! He got it! He got it! Oh my God, he got it!
Nice. The animated gave it away. I have to be honest.
A movie where the entire theater was crying at the end.
I love that movie. That is really a tremendous film.
It's a very good movie. And very
I learned a fun fact about that movie today, actually. When the movie debuted in China, the Chinese government have very strict censorship over what can be shown, especially with regards to spirituality and the afterlife. But the censors didn't take a single thing out of the movie. It's 0% censored
Wow.
because of the close correlation between the reverence for ancestors
In
in
both cultures.
Mexican culture and in Chinese culture.
Oh,
Yes.
that's neat.
And also because the censors were generally moved by the film.
Oh,
So
that's
they,
great.
they took like nothing out of the movie. I love that movie. It
great.
really is a very good film. Yeah.
It's great.
Very good film. Is that the last movie you saw where people clapped?
I don't think anyone clapped, but people were definitely crying.
Where they were moved by
For
it.
sure.
Yeah.
I
I didn't see
tearing
the
up.
movie in theaters. I watched it at home at Netflix, but I could tell that that probably was one that moved people to
my
tears.
God.
Very good movie.
A very good movie. Okay, anyway,
Classic movie.
way off topic.
I
owe you
don't
Chris
know how
$100
it got here.
bill.
But hey, I'll make a connection. The next movie, when we talk about Spectre, they do like a little Day of the Dead ceremony.
We're about one movie too early on that.
We are.
Unfortunately.
Generally, little takeaways from Skyfall that I noticed. The intro makes it seem like it's what we expect from Bond because he's like indoors and he's like he finds this dead body and he's like this guy was killed this way and that. But then he opens the doors and it's very much like an exotic locale. I feel like it's kind of an attempt to merge the two like Bondian themes. It's like Bond as a secret agent, but Bond as an exotic locale, kind of put in two separate like connotations. I thought that was kind of cool.
My note on that opening was, in a direct quote here from what I wrote, the opening stunt looks fake as shit. That's what I wrote. I wrote the effects were very bad on that stunt. It looked very fake.
Of him being shot and falling in the water? Is that
No,
what
but them on top of the train and running through the train and the crane hitting the Volkswagen product place Beetles off the train car and all that nonsense. So
okay,
it was fine, but it looked the motorcycle chase and over the rooftops and all that. It just looked really fake. That bothers me because I love the classic Bond films where those stunts are like they're actually doing the stunts, and so the bad CGI drives me crazy.
Yeah. It seems like it's very the whole opening is very paint by numbers.
Oh, 100%.
What I love, the only thing I think is really redemptive about the opening is that it's something you expect until the moment where M orders the agent to, quote, take the bloody shot.
You want to know the craziest thing about that?
Yeah.
That was in the trailer for the movie.
Was it really?
Yes, I went back. So I go back and I rewatch all the trailers for these movies because I just find it interesting and it's a good way to remind me what was in them. And actually, you'd be shocked for all the Daniel Craig movies. They give the whole plot away in these trailers. And yes, they literally show like almost the entire opening stunt in the trailer, and they show him getting shot and falling off the bridge and him coming back.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't watch the trailer. Full confession, I didn't watch the trailers to as a method of preparation for this episode. But I mean, I think the whole thing is like that. That's supposed to be the surprise where M is like, take the bloody shot. Like, I don't care if you kill Bond. Like, kill this other guy. I would rather you get the mission done. And it sets up this dichotomy between Bond and M that's necessary for the film, but has never really existed before, especially since the last movie ended with M saying, I need you back on the job, and Bond saying, I never left. Mm-hmm. You're right. A lot of these movies have to do with the relationship between Bond and M that have never really been explored before.
I think when you get a star the caliber of Judi Dench, it's kind of a no-brainer, and she is like Oscar-winning in this movie. I mean, she's so off the charts, but she's great in all of them. And I'm glad that not that there was anything wrong with the previous M's, but I think she had, it was a really great opportunity for her to show her acting skills opposite Daniel Craig. Yeah. And Ralph Fiennes, by the way, I think makes a great Inspector as well. So we'll get to that.
We get introduced to a new M, Ralph Fiennes, toward the end of the film. It's
Yeah,
kind
the
of a
end
little
the
bit of a
film.
surprise, because we don't
Well,
the path that M takes, I don't think is really expected or laid out
but
throughout
it
the
is
movie.
one of those things too, where it's like you don't bring in as big of an actor as him and have him in the movie, only to not bring him back for the next movie.
Right.
It's one of
That's
those
true.
like little movie
You
cheats
know
where
he's
you're
gonna
like, he's sticking around.
you know he's gonna do something. He's gonna have some big role, and it turns out he does take over as M. Um, this is the movie that introduces us to the new Q, right?
Yes, Ben Whishaw, the new
Yeah,
quartermaster, who I
right.
think is very not good in this movie and much better in Spectre.
Yeah.
I
He
think.
he has kind of a weird intro in this one.
Oh, actually, I'm going to be honest. I actually did kind of like the museum scene.
Yeah, you did, where they're looking at the painting.
It wasn't great, but I thought like it's. I think it was a better idea to introduce him outside the lab and then introduce the lab later than it is
Okay.
to introduce him in the lab with the lab coat and all that. Like, if this is a different Bond for a different generation, then mix up how you're going to bring him in. I just think his character in this movie is a little too nerdy, a little too whiny, a little too shy, a little too whatever you want to call it. I think he's funnier in Spectre. I think he has more personality in Spectre, which is what I like.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't. I thought that maybe it's just the actor choice. I thought was a little bit. He was a little self-serious for
Yeah.
me for a Q. Like I could get he's supposed to be very hyper intelligent like a Q for a new age, but he lacked the like Desmond Llewellyn, the old Q was intelligent, but he was also lighthearted.
Oh, he was funny. He was legitimately funny.
Yeah, he had funny lines, he had funny scenarios he was put in. This one seemed like he was going for not like old Q was funny, it was like smart slash funny, and this one is like smart slash strange. Not quirky,
Yeah.
but strange.
No,
Like like he had quirks, but not he wasn't like whimsical. He was just like, I've got some quirks to me.
I think
I don't know.
the big difference is that Desmond and the Bonds were kind of operating at the same level where Bond would quip and he would come right back with either, oh, James, or don't joke about that, or, he kind of matched the Bonds level. And for me, this Q, I think they're trying to make him more of the straight man, where he's a little more serious and he kind of delivers the information more straightforward, and then Bond makes the crack or Bond makes the joke playing off of him.
Which is totally in line with the playing of Q, or R, I guess is colloquially by Monty Python's
John Cleese.
John Cleese, yes. Like he's supposed to be like the comical straight man to Bond's like a Bond's gonna mess something up, like, I'm gonna be really mad about it. Like that's like him. Desmond Llewellyn, I think it could go both ways. Like
But-
he could joke about it, but he could also be the straight serious type.
But then that's the issue with this Q is you can't play a serious straight man against Daniel Craig, who is a serious straight man. That's the issue. I feel like this Q against like a Pierce Brosnan or Roger Moore would do better because someone in that relationship has to bring in the fun. It's a fun role. They do the goofy gadgets and shit. And by the way, they get away from the goofy gadgets in all the Daniel Craig movies. So you don't even have that fun element. And this movie has a problem. I think Spectre has it a little bit as well. Technobabble and hackers are bad villains in movies because they don't do anything. They sit at a computer, and there's a whole chunk of the movie where it's just Q at a computer, like, oh, it's a double encrypted code, and how are we? And it's like that. It's like poker. It's like it's not good to watch in a movie, like because it's just all code and shit on the screen.
Yeah.
That was a miss for me in these movies where Q isn't interesting because he's not doing zany stuff.
Right. He's not designing any kind of like crazy invention
I'm
or
not going to get mad at Ben Whishaw. I don't think he's doing a bad acting job. I just think they've taken the role in a direction that doesn't match up to what it's been historically.
yeah. They do. They reinvent the role in a way that I don't fully buy into, I guess.
No, but I do think he's better in Spectre because I think he's a little funnier in that. And I think because he's a little more fighting the system, going off the grid with Bond, I think it gives him more to do.
So maybe a lot like we can dismiss the first Craig as, we can kind of forgive him for his transgressions in the first
Well,
Craig. Maybe we can forgive Q's for his first
I mean,
performance.
Desmond
I guess.
was pretty unremarkable in Dr. No, if I remember correctly.
True. Yeah.
You know, you grow into these things.
Yeah, you do. You do. I guess so. Yeah, this movie went in a lot of different places. I think they were trying to go back, you know, it was kind of like back to its roots, which was very similar to Casino Royale, which I guess they kind of was influenced a lot by Casino Royale, like going back to the roots of Bond. This went all the way back though to like Bond's childhood.
Yes,
like his life
bold
in an orphanage.
Huge bold choice.
Very bold choice, right? We've talked about movies like On Her Majesty's or License to Kill that have brought Bond onto a personal level, right? Like it takes the like deified version of Bond as a superhuman secret agent, super spy, and puts him on like a human level, either with his wife being killed or with his best friend being maimed. And this one brings him all the way back to the beginnings.
Yep.
The therapist mentions like, "What about Skyfall?" And Bond like walks out of the room, and he's like, "I can't even deal with that." It goes to a very like psychological place, I think, of his upbringing and childhood at the Skyfall orphanage. What did you think of that,
Matt? I think this is the perfect time to bring up my controversial opinion of this movie.
Oh, okay.
My tweak.
Let's hear it.
Flaw
Let's hear the
in
tweak.
Skyfall. Are you
Let's
ready?
hear the flaw. The flaw. Yep.
Okay.
The sky flaw.
The sky flaw. From the point in the movie where we're first introduced to our villain, Javier Bardem as Raul Sylvia, right? On that island, on that deserted island, right? All the way through where Bond escapes the hearing with M and they head for Skyfall. That it's probably about a 45-minute to hour-long chunk in the middle of the movie, right?
Yep.
That kicks ass. That whole section is awesome. Everything before and after it is not very good. That's my controversial opinion on this movie.
So the only good part is in the middle?
Yes.
So the opposite of Casino Royale.
Yes.
Whereas Casino
here's the
Royale,
thing.
yeah, the beginning and the end were great.
I wrote in my notes, this film takes way too long to kick into gear. Everything before introducing Raul Sylvia is useless in this movie. Bond comes back from the dead. M starts getting hacked. All boring. He goes to Shanghai and has the skyscraper fight. Not really that interesting. He goes to the casino in Macau with those terrible CGI lizards. Again, not really interesting and not super relevant to the plot. It's so flat, the first chunk of this movie, to get into the action. And then, in my mind, Javier Bardem is the best part of this movie and probably my favorite villain of the Daniel Craig era. I think he's off the charts crazy in this movie in a way that I love my Bond villains to be crazy, where you're like, I legitimately don't know what this guy is going to do next. He's awesome. And I wanted more of him in the movie. And the issue is, well, I'm going to leave the Skyfall stuff for later because I have a whole different set of arguments for that. So I'm going to set that aside for the minute. But that, to me, is really where the movie is very good, where he's interacting. You know, he takes out the teeth and it's like, oh my God. Or he does like the weird, like, flirting with Bond. He has his hand on, like, this stuff. It's like,
right,
what is going on?
He unbuttons the shirt. Yes. I have to agree with you here. I thought he was a phenomenal Bond villain.
He's really good in this.
He's so, like, zany, but also controlled in a way that's scary.
Yes, he's
where
scary.
You actually fear that if this guy was a real guy, you would think he was like a scary terrorist that is capable of anything.
Oh, yeah.
I really appreciated that about this villain. I thought he knocked it out of the park. Probably the most underrated Bond villain ever in the franchise.
Yeah. I have a feeling next week when we start talking rankings and stuff, he likely in the top 5. I think
he is absolutely up there. We absolutely agree on that 100%. He is sadistic, he's smart, and he's dangerous. And he's basically every combination, I think, of a potent Bond villain.
And I think a good post 2010 villain as well, where it's totally. Like because you can't do like Moonraker level, I'm going to go to space and create a god race crazy level of guy,
right?
But they also can't be too
like get laughed off the screen.
Like it's that like I don't really like this comparison, but it's kind of Joker-esque in that, where it's like,
Yes.
it's serious and it's off the charts, but it's also like, there's something real about this performance that I'm
Some
really
people
buying.
just want to watch the world burn, and that's his whole thing is like, I don't care what I get out of this. I don't care what I gain. I just want to cause as much chaos as possible. I love it.
Now,
It's his portrayal is excellent, especially the part where they have him captured.
Yes.
And he's in like the glass
talking
case,
with M.
and you think he's secured and stuff, but he's like, no, like I have people out there, and you think that you've got me, but like something's about to happen. Oh, it's so good. Yeah,
he's great.
Very well
However, I do have to point out his plan is terrible. Because his plan
I never really understood his plan. Yeah.
I mean, I get the overarching get revenge on M. Great.
Yeah.
But to me, the worst villain trope in movies, villain gets intentionally caught to just escape. I hate when villains do that because it doesn't make any sense in reality. Or when he randomly chases Bond chases him through the thing, and he's like, oh, by the way, a train's going to crash through the wall now. And you're like, how do you even plan that? It didn't make any sense. That was annoying.
It did remind me a lot of Joker. I think this movie took a lot of influence from the Batman movie, like an insane amount when 100%. You look at it side by side. I liked his portrayal. Javier Bardem's portrayal was excellent.
Yes.
The character was well written, but it seemed like a little bit of a rehash. The motivation seemed like a little bit of a rehashing of GoldenEye, where it was like, MI6 screwed me, so I need to get back at them. Yeah. Like that was kind of Alec Trevelyan's whole thing in GoldenEye, was like, MI6 screwed my parents over, so I got to get back at them for revenge.
I appreciated that they took it in a different direction and I like both. Because I think Sean Bean is very like, I'm a professional, I'm a businessman, they screwed me, so I'm going to get them back. Whereas Javier Bardem loses his goddamn mind and is like, I'm not just going to kill you, I'm going to destroy you and everything you love.
Right, and
I
make everything
both.
turn against you,
which
is what
like
Batman happens in Batman. Yeah, it's like, I'm not just going to kill you, I'm going to vilify you.
Yep.
Make people hate you and make people want to end you, and that's his whole thing.
Yes.
So, Sean, I want to take you to a moment, and I've been waiting to take you to this moment for episodes and movies to come.
Bring it on.
I'm going to take you to this moment. I alluded to this moment way back in the first episode. If you rewind the tape,
is this your cameo?
This is my cameo.
I remembered.
You probably know exactly where I'm going, but I'm just going to go there anyway. Okay, good. I'm going to take you to this moment. So way back in the first episode, I said that there would be a perfect time. There's only one moment where I can visualize and see Sean Connery, who is still alive today, by the way, and was still alive as of not only the recording of this episode, but the recording of this film in 2011. There's only one moment I could visualize him rewalking onto the screen to a tune of probably a universal applause across movie theaters across the world. Here's the moment.
Okay.
Bond and M travel to Skyfall, right, in Scotland, where they're going to be like secured. And all right, now you see where I'm going with this.
Well, because there's only one other character.
There's a moment. You see where I'm going. He's in the orphanage, and there's that old caretaker that shows up.
Kincaid.
Could you imagine
by Albert Finney?
By who?
Albert Finney.
Albert Finney, who looks a lot like an aged Sean Connery. What do you think about this? That moment where Alfred Finney shows up with a shotgun, but they pan it from the ground up, and it turns out to be an aged Sean Connery. What do you think about that?
Now,
how cool would that be?
You're not saying Sean Connery is
not as Bond. That
okay, not in a BS Star Trek way where they bring in old Spock. Okay.
That would send people down like a loony bin.
That drives me crazy. But
that's not what Bond is about. Just like as a little cameo where we know it's Bond, or we know it's Sean Connery, but he is the orphanage caretaker in like the Bond way. I don't know. I thought that would be kind of neat if they could somehow. I know it's unrealistic that they could secure like Sean Connery's rights, but I thought that would be kind of cool. Like as a Bond fan, as a fan of the franchise, how cool would it be to see Sean, like the guys holding the shotgun, they pan up and then it's Sean Connery holding it. I think that people would go nuts for that.
I would say if you're going to bring him in, I agree with you. That is a good.
That's a cute way and a way that I think ties it all together.
What I would say is I don't think you need to do that. And also,
no, there's no need for it at all. It would just be pure fan service.
He hasn't acted in a movie since 2003.
Finding Forrester. Was that his last movie?
No, there was one after that.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Okay, that was his last one.
Yes.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yes.
But
yes, I agree with you. I think that would have been neat.
I remember mentioning it in the very first episode we did of these Bond films, and I still to this day really wish that was like brought into the film as a cameo moment. I thought it'd be kind of cool, like to tie it all together. Like, oh wow, that's Sean Connery. Like it's come full circle now.
You wouldn't do the same with Roger Moore?
No, just because Sean Connery was the original. He was the original, and I think when you get to that point where you're introducing more, then it's like, well, why not bring in Dalton? Well, why not bring in Lazenby? Like, Moore is the original. It's good bookends, I think. But then again, they came out with Spectre the year later, so
he was in Spice World. Roger Moore? I didn't know that.
Was he like their manager or their?
No, he was the chief.
The chief.
I don't remember that movie. That's just what the description. Anyway, much off topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that would be kind of a cool moment.
I agree. No, I'm totally with you.
Kind of bring him back. But they end up killing off M, classic character.
Yeah.
She kind of goes down with the ship in a way, right?
Here's how I feel about the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Not that I like the M death, but I like the M death scene. I think, again, Judi Dench, holy shit, knocking the goddamn ball out of the park.
This was her swan song. The writing was there for her.
Get her a supporting actress nom. Jesus.
It's like knocking the ball out of the park, but like when the ball is set up on a tee, to be honest.
I mean, it's a superstar. And I thought it played really well, and I'm not even that bummed, because I do like these characters rotating in and out, and I think Ralph Fiennes makes a great M as well. So she had a run. She did very well. I'm not beat up that they killed her necessarily, but I thought the ending was good. However, I don't like the rest of the end of this movie for a key reason. I don't think the action stuff at Skyfall works great. First of all, it's Home Alone. They just do Home Alone, which kind of drives me mad. And I get they're playing it off as like, oh, this is real original spy shit. But no, it's just Home Alone. And two, Matt, the end of this movie is so visually dark. I cannot see what is going on in the movie, and it drove me. I was watching it, and I'm like, why would you set your big action set piece at night in a place with no electricity?
I didn't even realize this when. Did you see the movie in theaters when it came out?
At midnight, yes, I did. I think I was asleep at that point.
At the midnight. Okay, so I didn't really have a problem with it in theaters.
It was better.
On the rewatch, I have to say I had a big problem with that. I was like very, very put off by that.
And I love stunts and I love explosions, but the explosions in this movie, especially all the shot squibs blowing off as they kind of just shoot the hell out of the Skyfall, nothing interesting is honestly happening. It's just a lot of, Craig running with a bunch of behind him. I guess the big explosion at the end is pretty neat.
Yeah. Just when the whole thing just burns down.
And I do like when Bond falls under the ice and he uses the flare to, it's like little bits, but I just think overall that whole scene just doesn't work for me. It wasn't a good ending action piece.
Yeah, they try to establish a significance that I don't think was ever, like, it seems a little forced. It seems a little contrived in a way. It's like they're trying to get us to care about this part of Bond's past that it's like it's never been mentioned before. It's kind of it feels a little artificial. Like, we know Bond was an orphan. We know he grew up without his parents. We know that very much like Batman. We know that he was pretty
Was
much
scared of
raised by the
bats.
yeah. He's scared of bats, yes, and the Joker.
He's a billionaire.
It really is almost like somebody watched the Batman movies and was like, let's just make a Batman movie, but with Bond.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
But without his like whole backstory. Like the backstory has to be purely invented for this movie.
I would love to know your thought on this, Matt. I don't think we need the Bond backstory in this movie.
I don't think we really do either. I think as far as the backstory goes, like we know he's an orphan. It's established in GoldenEye that he was an orphan that grew up kind of like side by side with 006, and it's not, and he went to Oxford, but he was never really like an Oxford guy because he grew up from this like poorer class. Like it's established there, but you don't need to go back. You don't need to like delve that back into it. It's not that deep. It's not that deep.
And I think this is part of the reason I didn't
Or
like
does
this.
it go that deep?
Didn't like this movie in theaters as much as in the rewatch because I hadn't seen Quantum of Solace and I'd only seen Casino Royale once years ago. There's a lot of continuity stuff in this from the previous movies. And I think I didn't understand it. As someone who had basically never seen a Bond film, you know, who knew very little of Bond as a whole, like, you really have to be invested in these 4 Daniel Craig movies to really get the full value out of them.
You do.
Which on one hand, I think is an interesting choice. And after now having watched all 4 of them, I liked some aspects of that. But as someone just coming in and watching one of them, I'm like, am I supposed to know who these people are?
I can only imagine like the Q intro as somebody who's never seen a Bond movie before.
Yeah, I just thought he was some annoying kid.
Just like, oh, this guy knows a lot about paintings and science.
You know, it's gonna be the old guy versus the new guy thing. You know, it was just odd. It does, and that's I think the downside to leaning so heavily on the continuity is you lose the value of standalone movies.
Yeah, but that's Skyfall. What do you think of Adele's song?
Oh, well, first of all, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about the music of James Bond. I got a playlist and I've been listening to it because I do think it's a very interesting part of all of these movies. Jack White and Alicia Keys, Quantum of Solace, which we didn't mention, not a great song. I do not like it.
You don't like that song?
I don't like that song.
Okay.
I like what they're going for. I think it's too overproduced. It doesn't sound like a Bond song because it's so overproduced.
What do you mean by overproduced?
It just sounds really produced. It just sounds very very technical. It's what I like about the Chris Cornell song is it just sounds like him on a guitar. I mean, there's really not a ton to it. Adele, same way. But with those guys, there's all kinds of effects and and then Jack White does like a weird guitar solo in the middle for no reason. And I don't know. It felt like an okay song, but not a great Bond song.
Yeah, I really you happen to have gotten me. I really like the
I know you did.
Cornell and Adele, both of them.
Adele's
I think they did tremendous Bond songs.
I mean, Adele won the Academy Award for Best Original Song for this.
She did. It was tremendous. I think
it's
it's kind of universal that it's a great Bond song. I don't think that Jack White's attempt was bad.
No, I don't think it's bad. I agree.
I don't think it's even like one of the worst Bond songs.
It's probably not bottom 5.
Honestly, I think I have more to say about the visual effects of the opening scene for Quantum of Solace than I do about the song itself.
I don't know about that.
I think the visual effects seemed like they fit better with like a Bond video game. It seemed like it was very like graphically done in like a like I felt like I was like when watching the visual effects, it feels more like you're playing like a GameCube or Xbox game like for Bond than like watching the film. Maybe it's just because it's very different. Like the perspective is different from a regular Bond film intro music sequence, but yeah. I don't know.
But I thought Skyfall had a great intro.
Skyfall did. I think the music was great. It was very
and the
spot
visual
on.
I thought was good too.
Yeah, the visual of Bond like sinking through the ocean floor and sinking through like all the depths and stuff, because it's kind of like getting to the core of Bond, which I think was like the I guess the main premise of the movie was getting to the heart of Bond.
Yep. I
just wish they did more with that. If they were going to go in that direction, then like why not make Bond's main villain like somebody from his past, like his twin brother or something?
They saved that for Spectre.
I guess they did, but it was in a different.
It was a miss here. No, I agree. It was for someone from M's past.
Yeah.
More so. the very last thing I want to put on Skyfall before we move on to Spectre is this movie essentially reboots the franchise again. We've got a new Q, a new M, a new Moneypenny.
Okay.
James Bond has sort of exorcised many of his demons. To me, starting Spectre felt like the start of something new, quote unquote. And I think Skyfall sticks the landing on the reboot exceptionally well. Exceptionally. I got to the end of this movie and I'm like, all right, I'm already ready for the next one. I'm like, all right, here we go. All the pieces are in place. We spent 3 movies learning who Daniel Craig's Bond is, where he comes from, what he's been through, what he's motivated by. Now we can get into the real James Bond shit. I got really excited at the end, and I thought they did now that I've seen these 3 as a trilogy, I'm like, okay, I get it now. And I like what they've done. I get it. Even with the mismatch in Quantum, I'm like, all right, I get the continuity. This is working for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to me, it's like Casino Royale starts where we're just tracking the development of Bond as a character, like Bond from square one, all the way up to 00 status, all the way up to we see his first kill, we see his first mission, how he kind of blows it, literally and figuratively. We see him move to more M is putting a lot of faith in him, a lot of trust in him. He's got the big score where he can't fail. That's Casino Royale. And then we move to Quantum of Solace, where he takes a little bit of a revenge route, but he knows when to stop himself. He ends it at the end with I didn't kill him. I pushed him to the edge, where it's we kind of, by the end of Quantum, I think we're established. The Bond character is kind of set in stone.
Yep.
And then that's where Skyfall begins, with this Bond character established. But now it's his relationship to the other people around him that has to be reinvented.
With the loss of M. And
with the loss of M, the recreation of a new M, a new Moneypenny, a new Q. It's all these people around the Bond that has now been recreated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is pretty neat. It's an interesting and unique way to revamp your franchise, to restart your franchise, basically. I think we can agree that all 4 of these Craig movies, I know we haven't gotten to Spectre yet, but all of them are probably better than Die Another Day, right? Would you agree with that?
What was your sort of fake award you made for effort earlier?
For Quantum of Solace, my booby prize.
Your booby prize? I give a special booby prize because I like just how stupid Die Another Day is. Yeah. So, to be fair, but in terms of being a movie, yes, no, they're better. Look, they're better as a set than individually. I'm going to come right out and say that. If you said the Roger Moore films, they're better individually. Don't mix and match the Moore films. But these movies make a better set. If you're here's Quantum of Solace, it's a standalone movie. I'm like, that's not a very good movie. Even Casino Royale, I have issues with. Yeah. But once you put them together and you see what you're right. It's like a 6-10 whatever hour movie is really what you're getting here. But I think I really want to talk about Spectre because I would argue there is carryover, but there's also not. And I'm kind of annoyed at the carryover in this film because they should have just shut that shit down at the end of Skyfall. But Spectre 2015, as we mentioned, 148 minutes, very long. Made $880 million at the box office. Daniel Craig is back, and we've got a whole new set of characters, Matt. What did you think? I want to start with the opening of Spectre. Dia de los Muertos. Fun fact, took place in the scene took place in Mexico City, where there is no major Day of the Dead parade. They actually made that up for the movie.
Yeah.
However,
following
the movie, they actually started a parade. And the idea came from the movie because people were like, why isn't this a thing? And then the year after the movie came out, they had the first ever parade in Mexico City.
I really like that.
Yeah, it's a nice story.
It's kind of cool. Yeah, they kind of left an imprint on them. I was going to say that the 2 things about the intro. Number 1 is that it's the very first intro we get that starts with just a block of text.
Yes.
It says the dead are walking. And that was kind of jarring from a perspective of a Bond movie. I don't really know where they got that idea from to start it with a text box. It almost reminded me of like a hearkening back to maybe silent films, that used to have like text boxes, and then they would show you like actions. That was kind of cool. The second thing is that it reminded me a lot of Live and Let Die because of all the like
sure.
the skeletal imagery and
Absolutely.
like that was I thought it was interesting. A lot of it was kind of like Live and Let Die merged with Spy Who Loved Me, right? Because it had like the helicopters. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I actually really liked the opening a lot. My note here was opening looked expensive, was what I wrote.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Starting with that great continuous shot that went on for a really long time.
Oh, yeah.
Which, again, with the digital effects, it's easier to do now than it was before, but still, it looks really cool and something we hadn't seen in a Bond movie before.
I might be putting you on the spot here, but was this movie out around the same time as Birdman by chance?
I will look that up, but
because I kind of sense like I sense like a theme with these movies where it's like Casino Royale, Born Identity, Skyfall, the Batman movies. It's like they just catch influences of the popular movie du jour.
I agree with you, and lending credence to your theory is Spectre came out in 2015, Birdman in 2014.
Okay.
But at the same time, I just think instinctually I'm like, I don't know.
It's like,
what are the odds of that?
I mean, I don't know. I think they're pretty good.
It's a good theory.
It seems like the people that made this movie saw Birdman and they were like, oh, a whole movie based around essentially one continuous shot, and it won a bunch of awards. Like let's investigate that. And we'll do that for our opening shot. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's kind of interesting to point out. Like it used to be that Bond was kind of a trendsetter, and now it's kind of the opposite. That it's
whatever's in.
The Craig one is the Craig series, and it's not because of the actor at all. I'm just labeling it based on.
No, it's the way they're written.
Right. It's like now we're taking on the identity of other movies. I find it very interesting.
I'm just waiting for there to be superheroes in the next one.
Right. Thanos shows up, and he's the new supervillain for the next
Bond fighting Thanos. I actually would be very on board with that.
Right. The villain he's trying to reduce the world's population, and he's going to do it with a snap of his fingers. Yeah.
Now, I also thought the helicopter action was super well shot. I got to give credit to director Sam Mendes, who also did Skyfall before it. I think he did a really nice job with that helicopter fight. Felt like a more classic Bond action scene, and I enjoyed it very much. So I thought the opening was really good.
Yeah, it was. It seemed like a merging of a lot of flavors of Bond all at once, which I don't think was a bad thing. I think it was generally pretty good. What do you think of the opening, the title theme?
Okay. Sam Smith, Writings on the Wall, is unequivocally a bottom 5 Bond song. I mean, it's bad. It's bad. It's truly bad. It's
beyond forgettable.
I wouldn't say it's Lulu bad, but I would say it's Madonna bad.
Die Another Day?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of my bottom 5 here, but it would probably be those: Lulu, Die Another Day, this song, Sheena Easton, You Only Live Twice.
Yeah, was that Sheena Easton, or was that I thought that was
Oh, I'm mixing them up, aren't I?
I don't know. I thought that was Sinatra.
Oh, For Your Eyes Only. For Your Eyes Only, you're right.
Yeah.
For Your Eyes Only. Yeah, that's not a good one.
No, it's very forgettable. No, if you're referring to You Only Live Twice, that I think that was
Tomorrow Never Dies is very bad.
Oh no, I don't even remember Tomorrow Never Dies. That's how bad it was.
Tomorrow Never Dies. It's bad.
Yes, so forgettable. GoldenEye, I didn't think was great either.
I thought it was okay. Tina Turner.
Tina Turner's GoldenEye.
Yeah, I thought it got the job done. But God, Madonna, die. That
was weird.
God.
Yeah,
it's really bad. Okay,
unsettling.
Anyway, we're getting off topic. And then the tentacle sex opening.
Yep.
Where the ladies are getting covered with the tentacle. I thought it was fine.
Sure.
I thought the graphics were fine. The song was very. I'm like legitimately upset it won the Academy Award and Golden Globe that year.
I'm confused by that. I want some like clarification.
Well, I can give you some because I had to literally go and look up what it was competing against, and In 2015, it was competing against Earned It from 50 Shades of Grey, Till It Happens from You from The Hunting Ground, which I don't know what that is, Manta Ray from Racing Extinction, which is a documentary, and Simple Song number 3 from Youth. So basically it had no competition, if I'm being honest.
So, yeah, all right. So
because it wasn't like a big animated film or a Disney song, or because the next year was Trolls, Moana, La La Land, like actual songs.
It was never gonna be.
The next year was Coco. The year after that was A Star Is Born. Like big movie. There was it had no competition.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh, what a great Coco was such a good movie.
It really, and the shame
really was phenomenal.
And Pixar does this, and the reason movies like Coco don't get enough attention is because you can't make toys out of Coco.
That's true.
There's a reason why they've made 3 Cars film or Finding Nemo films. It's because they can sell a crap ton of merchandise for that. Cars is literally toys. Like that's
never thought of that.
Toy Story is literally toys.
You can't make toys out of it. Yeah,
but it's Coco, and what's the other? It's like Up. And like even WALL-E to some degree, it's like you can't make toys out of these movies. That's why Disney doesn't care about them.
Yeah.
So that's what bums me out. Is
even Monsters Inc. I guess you could like kind of, but it's not. It's
They're
not
more cuddly character. The issue is like the old man in Up isn't getting an action figure.
Sure, right, but maybe the dog in Up would.
And I think he has.
Like but he's not the main character.
No. There's a reason why they don't do movies like those anymore.
No, it's true.
You can't franchise them.
Oh God, Coco is so good.
It's great.
Such a good movie. Yeah.
Very good. Spectre.
Yeah, Spectre.
Where do you want to start on this one? So we've gotten through the theme song. We enter the movie.
All right. I'm just gonna start with a statement. Okay. I wish the villain were better in this movie. This might be a controversial opinion, but I wish he was better. I wish that Christoph Waltz was a better villain. I feel like he didn't exude his full potential in this movie. He held back, and I don't know why.
I don't think it's Christoph Waltz's fault. I think the biggest mistake this made was Blofeld. It shouldn't have been Blofeld. It should have never been Blofeld. That was the mistake this movie made. It was very reminiscent. Did I see Star Trek Into Darkness with you? I think I did.
You did. Okay. That was one of the rare crossovers that we saw in theaters together.
We had Vietnamese food with Phil.
Yeah.
And then we went and saw Star Trek Into Darkness.
Star Trek Into Darkness, yes. But the villain of that movie was not Christoph Waltz.
No, it was Zachary Quinto, but they did the same thing where he's a rebooted Khan.
No, not Zachary Quinto.
Or no, I'm sorry. No, he plays Spock. It's the
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Thank you.
Yes, he was the rebooted Khan.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
It's the same
Everybody
thing.
saw him coming.
But it's like, why?
When he was revealed, it's like, yes, of course he's the villain. We all knew that. Like when you see Wrath of Khan, or when you see Star Trek Into Darkness, like Khan is going to be the villain. You're hoping along the line somewhere it's going to get circumvented. But then when it doesn't, you're like extremely disappointed by that. Same thing with this movie. You're hoping beyond all hope that somehow this movie will get the villain will get circumvented and it won't be Khan, or in this case it won't be Blofeld. Yeah. But then it does turn out to be Blofeld. And you're like, of course it's Blofeld. We knew it. The movie is called Spectre. Of course it's going to be Blofeld.
But what makes even less sense about that? And I think the Blofeld thing is even worse because the last time Blofeld was in a James Bond movie?
It was when he got dropped into the...
I'm not counting that because they technically, legally never call him Blofeld.
That was,
so the last time he had a speaking role in a movie.
Okay. Diamonds? Was it Diamonds Are Forever?
Diamonds. In 1971, Matt. Okay?
Wow.
So everyone who went and saw this movie, either you're a diehard Bond fan who, maybe gets excited about this, or you're a normal person who's like, who's the crazy guy? Blofeld who? Never heard of him. That's most people watching this movie. Like, it was so unnecessary, especially after you have Javier Bardem being great in the previous movie as an original villain, Mads Mikkelsen being a good original villain. It's like, why? Go. And I get it's because, hey, great, good news, guys. We settled with the Spectre people. We can use Spectre again. It's like, but you don't have to.
You don't have to. And
just
matter of fact,
it doesn't mean you have to use it.
Right. And it would be better if, just saying, if you were going to introduce Spectre as the villain of your movie, maybe don't call the movie Spectre.
Yeah,
Maybe
real
call
subtle,
it something
guys.
else, and then it can be like a pleasant surprise / callback to the true Bond fans when you do reveal that the villain in your movie is Spectre.
Yes.
Or Blofeld as the head of Spectre.
And
if you call the movie Spectre, everybody's going to be waiting for that reveal, and then when they get it, it's not a surprise because we've kind of expected it.
Well,
I think it would have done. It just would have done like much better if they had called the movie something else and just waited till the reveal. But
and it drove me mad because even knowing the name and even starting to watch it, I'm like, didn't you spend a whole movie building a new villain organization called Quantum?
Right, but then they retcon it.
Do that.
Quantum is a part of Spectre.
Which is like, okay, so now they have like divisions? Like Spectre is an umbrella corporation?
They have chapters. Like it's kind of like the Knights of Columbus, Sean.
Where it's confusing.
Like, yeah, it is. It's a little confusing. But I don't think that I don't really have a problem with Christoph Waltz specifically. I think he tries his best in this. It's just I wish that they
had a
had
bad character because it's confusing and then it's like, but then he's connected to Bond's past in a way you only understand if you saw the previous movies.
Yeah, you have to be like a diehard fan, but at least they didn't do the thing from Wrath of Darkness.
Into Darkness,
where they're like, oh no, we promise it's not Khan. Oh wait,
it's Khan.
It's Khan. It's Wrath of Khan. At least they didn't like interlude. They didn't treat the fans like they were idiots, which is exactly what the
fans felt like
Star Trek movies did.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I know. I wrote in my notes, direct quote, "This Blofeld sucks."
This Blofeld blows.
Yeah. And his bad guy plan is weak sauce, I wrote. Again, another hacking villain, which I'm like, that's not...
Yeah.
And then
that's
it's
kind of like the supervillain du jour,
But
though.
he also... We spend so little time on his plan, and he never really explains what he's going to do with it, because it's the Nine Eyes program where they're going to connect the intelligence organizations of all these major countries around the world. Blofeld has an inside man at the British intelligence, C, as he's called in the movie. I think that character is a little underused as well. Who's the actor who plays him? Andrew Scott, who I thought would have been better. You may know him from BBC's Sherlock.
Yes, yeah, he's really good in Sherlock.
Yeah, he could have been better in this, but
underutilized. Yeah,
but I get so Blofeld's like, okay, I'll have access to all of this information, but then he never says does he ever say what he's going to do with it, other than be powerful and do bad things?
He's just he's gonna take his bad guy organization and spread it over the MI6 like influence.
I mean, at least all the
something about computers and the internet. Like that's all I got from this.
It was lame.
Yeah.
It was lame. The whole introduction in the crater I thought was really kind of lame. Where they're like walking around the meteorite and they're talking, it's a powerful force that hit the Earth. And I'm like, what does this have to do with anything? It's so slow.
They kind of build up to this moment. There's two moments where it's like the double reveal. Like the first reveal is you see like Christoph Waltz's face is like shaded out. He's in like this like covert meeting, and Bond is like spying on him. And you like wanna like maintain some kind of mystery, but the name of the freaking movie is Spectre. Like this guy is gonna be the head of Spectre. I just wish they had like circumvented it in a way where it's like, like it turns out that Christoph Waltz is the head of some other, like maybe have Quantum be this like fringe organization that's like trying to do all this stuff, and then Bond like shuts him down. And then you have one guy like escape from the shutdown, and he's like he sees you all the time. He's Spectre, like he's spectating, and kind of like the little Joker calling card at the end of Batman Begins, where it's like he left a calling card, so the next movie will set it. That's just like I guess a simple way to circumvent it. But when you call the movie Spectre, like you know what's coming. You know that like the whole movie's basically been spoiled for you.
And the worst thing for me,
Yeah.
They retconned Spectre. It's no longer an acronym. It's just a word.
Right. It's just a dude.
It's no longer
like,
the what is it? Now I got to
oh
Google
my
what
God.
it stood for.
It's such a long like crazy. I'm pretty sure when they wrote it, they were like they thought of the acronym first. Fleming probably thought of the acronym first and was like, let me make a shady organization out of this. It's like Society for the Prevention of.
No, I gotta look it up.
Of a whole bunch of stuff.
Spectre. Boy, a lot of things are called Spectre, isn't it? Spectre, an evil organization. The Special Executive for Counterintelligence, Terrorism, Revenge, and Extortion.
Okay.
Not great. Anyway, okay, so I agree with you on everything we've said. I want to say something nice about the movie.
Okay.
If I may. Because I didn't think it was bad. I thought it had good moments. I liked some of the action in the movie. The Aston Martin chase that they did throughout the city. And what was it? No, it wasn't Venice. It was no? Where was that? Earlier in the movie. I don't remember. But I thought it was good. Daniel Craig was really quippy. They did some jokes, like where they had the switches in the car and one said like air and he flipped it and like the air conditioning turned on or whatever. Like I thought some of that was actually kind of funny. And I liked in this movie the team up of M and Q and Moneypenny and Bond, and they had some funny moments and they had some serious moments and they were working behind the scenes and it was them against the world. I thought all of that worked really well in this movie. That was the part I really liked, the funnier moments. It felt more James Bondy in that respect, as they were working together against the system. So that was probably my favorite thing in the movie. I also got to shout out Dave Bautista, who played Mr. Hinks in the film, had one word in the whole movie. He didn't talk the whole movie, but the action was great. The fight scene on the train I thought was very good. It was shot very well, very exciting. And so that part was good as well, I would say.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't really remember too much about this movie besides like the major reveals. Like I like the end. Do you think was there a callback to Man with the Golden Gun? Remember when they first, like when the Spectre reveal is kind of solidified, where like throughout the movie it's like, no, he's not Spectre, he's not Spectre, he's not Spectre, and then you get like he's Spectre. They're in like a fun house kind of thing where it's like there's little signs that are pointing in like his direction.
Oh yeah, in the soon to be demolished MI6 headquarters.
Yes, I got like there was some kind of callback to Man with the Golden Gun. In that, like Man with the Golden Gun runs like a fake museum type building, and I don't know. I kind of saw like some kind of callback to that. Funhouse mirrors and I could see kind of what it was reaching for in that respect, but again, you name your movie Spectre, like you know it's coming.
I want to hit on a couple quick things before we begin to wrap up Spectre. Let's talk about Dr. Madeleine Swann, the daughter of Mr. White, the Bond girl of the movie, played by Léa Seydoux, French actress. Matt, this was one of those Bond. So there are Bond movies where Bond has sex with a girl and forgets about her, and then there are the Bond movies where Bond has sex with a girl and then they fall in love. A Vesper Lynd type. Apparently, this is one of those movies. They fall in love. I would argue there's never been a Bond film where I thought the falling in love was earned, including this movie. I didn't think it was with Vesper. I didn't think it was with Madeleine. Because it's kind of, they don't do anything that proves to me they should fall in love and it would get Bond to retire, but whatever. She plays a major role in the film, and by the way, has been confirmed she will be returning for the next Bond film.
Is that so?
Yes.
Okay.
They've already announced her casting.
Okay. That's never happened before, right? That's kind of like unprecedented.
I mean, I wrote in my notes, I said, how is it that 4 movies later and we're still talking about Vesper? So it's not that she appears in the later movies, but she definitely does have carryover. But you're right. Otherwise, it's pretty rare.
Oh, I don't know if that's a good idea. I feel like most people, besides us, who had to watch these movies and like do research, I think most people have kind of moved on. Is that fair to say?
I don't, because I think probably next week. I don't think tonight, but next week we're going to talk about Bond 25, the next Bond film.
Yeah.
But what we know about the plot is that Bond's on vacation in the tropics.
That's all we know. And a scientist has been murdered or something.
He goes missing, and Felix asks him to help investigate. My guess is that Swan is at least in the first part of the movie on that vacation. The question is, how far into the movie does she last?
He's on vacation, and I think he's also retired, right? Like he's
semi-retired, something like that.
Yeah, like an extended vacation.
Yes. So the question is, how much is Swan involved, right?
Okay.
She could be for just the first 10 minutes, and they pull a Tracy and make her disappear. She could do half the movie, the whole movie. I don't know. That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a great. I mean, we'll talk more about this next year, but the next episode. But I don't know if the next Bond film, which I think is scheduled to release next year, if that's such a great idea to rehash the Lind.
I mean, they're
triangle.
They're gonna keep doing it until they get bored with it. I mean, they show no signs of stopping.
It's been what, 6 years since the last?
It's been a long time. It'll end up being about 5 years since Spectre.
5 or 6 years. Yeah. By the time the movie comes out.
Yeah, but the weird thing is they keep ending these movies like they're rebooting. Like they end Skyfall, they're like, all right, it's a reset, and then they don't, and then they end Spectre, and we can talk about the end of the movie where Blofeld is on the bridge, and on one end you have M, and on the other end you have Dr. Swan, and he has to decide whether or not he's going to execute the heavily injured Blofeld. He chooses not to shoot the gun. And again, it's a reset. It's a reboot. And I'm like, but are you actually going to reboot? Are you actually going to, he's a different man now? They can't quite decide.
I don't know. We'll have to find out next week with our Bond 25 episode.
Yes, indeed, Matt. I think that just about wraps us up on Spectre, unless you have any other thoughts.
No, that's about it.
That's about it. A fine film.
Sure.
Yeah,
this was an interesting direction, I think, that the Bond films went in.
I will say, coming into this whole series, I was like, Daniel Craig is not a great Bond, and his movies aren't good. And in rewatching them, I have greatly changed my opinion.
I think that you're probably in the same mindset as most people. Most people.
But again, you have to see all four for it to really, or at least the first three for it to really be good. I feel like you lose a big chunk.
Yeah, it's curious in that way, where it really does seem like it kind of like one flows into the other.
But then again, Skyfall, the highest grossing Bond film ever. I think Casino Royale is number 2. I mean, that's also the rise in ticket prices, but still. They're successful, no doubt about it, and they're going to be bringing back another one.
I have to say, in closing, like what an accomplishment by these. Like they didn't just continue Bond into a new age, which they easily could have, but they reinvented Bond as a character, which took a lot more work and a lot more kind of bravery in a way. So I have to give the Craig Bonds a lot of credit. It's like, we're not just going to move Bond into the 21st century. We're going to reinvent him and kind of rethink him, which takes a lot more effort, but in the long run, I think it's very much paid off.
I think it mostly works.
Yeah, the Bond that they're going to get in the future is much more one that's much more conducive to the changes they've made.
Yes. Well, Matt, and I want you to think about this question. Don't answer it tonight, but think about it for next time.
Yeah.
Should Bond continue?
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying these movies don't make sense to keep making.
Well, yeah. Well, that's something we'll talk about next
Good question.
Sure.
Guys, Matt, that's it. We've gone through all 24, 25 movies.
We have.
Isn't that unbelievable? I didn't think it could be done, and we did it. The great thing is, next week we're going to have a big-time wrap-up episode where we're going to go ahead and make some big final calls. We're going to talk our top villains, our top bad guy plans, our top Bond girls, our favorite songs, our favorite films, and of course, we're ultimately going to rank the Bonds themselves and determine which is, I won't say the best, our favorite probably is more accurate to say.
Which Bond is the Bondiest Bond?
I think that's going to be the hardest question to answer because they're all good. None
of
them are bad.
It'll be worth talking about. We'll get into a lot of different
We're going to definitely debate. For sure there will be debate. I guarantee it.
I'm up for it.
I sure hope so, Matt, because we'll be doing that next time. But I have to thank everybody who joined us this time on this episode. It's been a blast. Thank you for sitting through nearly 2.5 hours of our blathering. We appreciate it. You can get all the past episodes in this series or any episode we've ever done at upfordebate.tv or wherever you get podcasts. Check us out in the feed. You can also subscribe to us on Twitter at upfordebatetv or email us upfordebatetv@gmail.com. That's going to do it for Matt and myself. Come back as we wrap up this great series. But until then, on behalf of Matt, I'm Sean. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on a Bond-filled episode of Up for Debate Presents.